kudos and thanks to Councilmember Way. There's no getting items faster. We're items 11 through 13. These are reports by council and staff. I apologize for inadvertently and perhaps subliminally optimistically jumping the consent calendar. I would like to encourage everyone to be extremely brief. It is getting a bit late, and I know that a lot of time has elapsed since our November 16th meeting. But let me get us started on item number 11 with brief reports on council member activities and brief announcements. Obviously a lot of activities. The one I would like to make quick note of is that I was invited by De Anza College as well as the new startup company Neuro, which is a electronic self-driving delivery company. You might have seen their ads on, I think, Domino's Pizza or something like that, to speak over at De Anza College about their new program that they're working in conjunction with each other to try to deliver internships for their students at this new startup and this fantastically interesting concept of transportation. So I spoke there. Councilmember Moore was there. Vice Mayor Chow was on her way, but and I relayed this to those attending, and everyone wore a mask. It was indoors. That her battery had actually died, which is interesting since, of course, Neuro is a battery operated, vehicle delivery system. And so it was really a great opportunity and very refreshing to see. And in my remarks, I essentially said, a lot of people wonder what makes our area work. And it's precisely this kind of stuff that people don't normally see that make the area work, where it's very compassionate. You think about, bringing everyone along and providing opportunities for people in this country. So that's my report on item number 11. Would anyone else from council like to provide their brief reports? And I don't actually see hands right now. And so now I do. Councilmember Moore, followed by Councilmember Way.
Okay, I'll try to be fast. So on November 17th, I attended the Cal Cities ACA 7 working group, and we voted to have a no position, not a no, but no position on ACA 7 and the initiative, but to send the items back to the respective committees. On the December 2nd, I also attended the Neuro program. On the 3rd, I think we had a full house for the tree lighting ceremony. And that was an awesome event and great to be outdoors and having it again. And on the 4th, several of us were attending Siwa Diwali for the food donation. Perhaps Councilmember Way wants to provide a little more information about that. And then for an announcement that we received an email from Housing Trust Silicon Valley. The Board of Supervisors increased the loan amount for the first-time home buyers loan to 1.1 million. So please look up Housing Trust Silicon Valley. They are hosting monthly seminars, and you can get more information about that. So this is good news. It used to be $800,000 for the home value. Now they're at 1.1 million. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Way.
Thank you. I'll be fast too. On November 29th, I attended the Cal Cities Peninsula Division Board retreat, and we set the 2022 priorities, and I look forward to our city to work collaboratively with all the cities in 3 counties. And December 3rd, I attended a webinar hosted by the California Senators Dave Cortese and Josh Becker on the history and impact of California housing crisis. This is one of 3 webinars, so I would like to invite our council members to, actually, I think Councilmember Moore was there. And on the 3rd, I attended the Chamber's Legislative Action Committee meeting, and they're talking about information on Foothill De Anza College District Trustee area maps information, which is pretty important to us too, because they are in our area. And the tree lighting, I'm not going to emphasize that. All 5 of us there. It was really great. And we have a few kids there too. And the Sabbath Diwali, 3 of us were there. They donated 32 and 500 pounds of food across our Bay Area. So there are council members from Livermore, from Saratoga, from Cupertino, from Sunnyvale, they're all there. And our West Valley Community Services actually was one of the beneficiaries. I think they received maybe Mayor Paul remember how many pounds of food they received, a lot of food.
That's
And
right.
on the 4th, I attended Monte Vista High School FBLA's Shark Tank event hosted by the Rotary Club of Cupertino. So next time I'll invite all of you. Our kids are truly, truly bright. And I think that's it.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Wei. And next we have Councilmember Willie.
Yeah, I'll just follow up with some of the same comments. The Siwa Diwali donation, absolutely great. At this point, you know, each year, the holidays are so important that we do need to be reaching out and helping. The humorous side, once in a while we get to say something humorous. At the tree lighting, my 8-year-old let me know that that was not real Santa, that it was a fake beard. Oh, uh-oh. I guess we have to tell them Santa does have helpers. Well, then on to more serious stuff, the Silicon Valley Regional Interoperability Authority meeting. And previously we had talked about jamming instances, and there was another one. So there are still some concerns out there. Uh, Once again, it was caught and tracked down, but still there are concerns out there. So I'll just mention though to the residents, we are still getting email from, like that spoke during public comment, the concerns about the school. I share your concerns. I have 3 small kids and I share your concerns, and I'll be reaching out and letting the CUSD board know I share your concern. How will it, you know, impact that or help? I don't know, but I do feel it's the right thing to do, that we do have these concerns, and perhaps during this pandemic, things should be looked at a second time. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Willie. And next we have Vice Mayor Chow.
So are we combining the committee assignment or not?
No, this is separate.
Okay, then I attended the tree lighting also. I think 600 people signed up. It's such a great event. It's great to see so many people came out after the pandemic. The Santa arrived in a fire truck, and then I stayed and watched a lot of kids line up, even though they cannot sit on Santa's lap. They get to talk from a distance, but still many people lined up and waited for a long time to talk to Santa. The city just posted a lot, thanks to the Parks and Rec staff members. They have really put in a lot of effort every year, and the choir from Homestead High. Yeah, amazing event. I'm sorry that I missed the Neuro and the Siwa Diwali festival, but then I'm reaching out to the organizers. I'm hoping to visit their company to see how they operate. And yeah, and then a lot of community members are helping with donation, food drive. Thanks a lot.
Okay, great. Let's go on to committee assignments. And I'll just remind everyone, this is for our pre-assigned committees. Anything from November 16th that we'd like to report out on. Just keep cognizant of the time, you know, and please try to create a concise summary. So Councilmember Wei.
All right, really brief. November 11th, 2 p.m., I attended the Cupertino Disaster Council meeting, and the information are very good. And also December 7th, the City of Cupertino and CUSD Strategic Partnership meeting, because I am the school board liaison for the city. And it is really a good meeting, and we are recommended that we meet more regularly, and so that we can collaborate more with CUSD.
Thank you, Councilmember Wei. Next, we have Vice Mayor Chow.
Hi, I attended the same meeting, and we got a lot of the staff gave each other a very good update. We haven't met for the entire year, so this is the first time. It's true that if we had met earlier, maybe we could have asked questions about the school closure, the data, why is that necessary earlier. Maybe more communication will be, but then there is a confusion on the name of the committee, so we were confused who are assigned. Maybe when we do the assignment next year, that we can clarify that. Yeah.
No, good point. Thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. Next, we have Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. This is not so much as an announcement or telling where I've been, but I've got a question for tomorrow because the VTA TAC is meeting, and I'm wondering who will be our representative for that. If I could find out that information so I can connect with that staff member, because the following day we have the VTA PAC at 4.
Still be Roger. He's I think he's retiring at the end of the calendar year.
Okay,
But, yeah,
excellent. Thank you.
I you know, I don't want to speak for somebody else. Is that correct? I do see the interim city
I
manager.
believe that's correct, and if it's not, we'll correct it first thing in the morning, but you will have staff support.
Okay, great. All right, so speaking of VTA, you know, my one report out on committee assignments has to do with that. And, you know, obviously they're dealing with a lot of various issues, especially near the end of the year like we are. I am heartened to report that the transit-oriented developments did see a bit of progress. Both Council Member Moore and myself, we play integral roles in VTA. She's on the PAC, the Policy Advisory Committee, as the chair. I'm of course on the board, one of the 12 board members. But you know, the TODs, they've been applying for Measure A money to, you know, try to build some of their developments to help support particular transit stops in mainly the eastern part of the county, which, you know, I think is a good thing to build out the transit system. But at the same time, Measure A was, you know, meant for largely the unhoused and, you know, the affordability of housing issue. But I just wanted to remind them last time we met that, you know, we should be thinking about supportive housing for the unhoused as well as, you know, supportive services. And so I'm heartened to report that the 2 transit-oriented developments that they considered last time, they did specifically carve out particular units. It is referred back to the PAC early in the calendar year next year for input from all of the cities, because the PAC, of course, is represented by each of the cities in the county. So I think that serves a really critical function within VTA, because of course VTA, the board itself is pretty San Jose and county dominated. So that'll be my report out. Finally, did I miss anybody? I don't think I did, but did I miss anybody on committee assignments? I don't see any hands raised at this point. So let's go on to item number 13, which is our city manager update. Mr. Larson, for your final city manager update, do you have anything?
Yes, my final one, and unfortunately it's more than prior because of council and public requests, but I will keep it short. First, on the events frame, following up on Councilman Willie's comment, Cupertino's own Santa's Helpers will be resuming Santa visits this year for the next 2 weekends for families who would like a visit from Santa. However, registration must be made in person at the Quinlan Community Center. And that's for this coming 11th and 12th, and the following weekend, the 17th, 18th, and 19th. And in the midst of all of that, if you want to get in a Hawaiian mood, the Cupertino Senior Center's hula dancers is inviting the public to come along and sway with them on Wednesday the 15th from 1:30 to 3 p.m. And again, because of COVID, pre-registration is required on the city website. I did want to highlight that the most important issue facing the council and the new city manager and city staff next year will be the housing element, which will be a challenging and difficult process given state requirements. And we're kicking off our public engagement program, a very aggressive one, which starts this Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. This first one will be a virtual engagement with the public who wants to participate. And we are looking for live ones next year as the COVID dynamic allows us to do so. Moving to the COVID update, I'll keep this very short. First, we have the Omni variant rising up on us, as well as concern about what happens over the holidays. And that summarizes the national and international statewide state of the pandemic. Here in the county, we have good news though. Just yesterday, the county moved to the yellow tier. So given there has to be a period of time before the mask mandate can be removed, we do think come mid to late January, again, depending what happens with the Omni variant, and over the holidays, the city may want to revisit what is our reopening platform for the future. But the good news is Cupertino remains the highest vaccinated rate, continues to have the lowest case rate per 100,000 in the county. So that good news remains. And I just need to share, I actually went and was a customer of the county's testing that is done at the senior center yesterday. And our 10 Citizen Corps volunteers that work there are incredible. It is well organized, it's easy. It takes 5 minutes, 10 max to get through. Everybody's wearing smiles. You can imagine them beneath their masks because of their eyes twinkling up. And it's just incredibly well organized. And yesterday we had 457 tests administered. And the last day before the holidays will be in 2 weeks on Monday, December 20th. And pre-registration is required on the county website. I also wanted to let the council know that at the work program update, I had submitted a staff report that included a number of work impact items on your city staff that had to be recognized and acknowledged. We had 2 members of the public, at least 2, it may have been 3 or 4, cite that list in my staff report in their own communications to council that I responded to, and per council and resident request, we will be posting my responses to those items on the city website tomorrow instead of my reading through them tonight. My last report was that the council will remember that when I provided a comprehensive update on Valco on September 7th, the council requested, I believe it was Councilman Willie, that we have periodic updates to the Valco project. I then conducted my first oral update on the Valco project on September 21st, and I did want to provide tonight my final update on the Valco project as your city manager. First, the project is progressing, and it appears it will be built as the developer prefers, because that's the requirement under state law in terms of the city's jurisdiction and authority. And also that's despite community concerns that well less than 10% of the nearly 6 million square feet of that project is dedicated to affordable housing. Over 90% is dedicated to retail, commercial, and market-based housing. The biggest project delays are due to the long-standing toxic contamination on the site. Since I last spoke about Valco, the developer has submitted a first draft of the conceptual site model to identify the extent and sources of the contamination. The county, which has regulatory authority over the toxic contamination, has responded to that first draft and needs considerable additional information submitted by December 20th. After the developer completes that additional work to the county's satisfaction, then the developer will begin working on a site management plan for county review and approval. I expect that any cleanup work, if it's required, will not start for several months, depending on how quickly the developer chooses to act. Because of the importance of monitoring the cleanup process, 2 city staff members are now immediate subscribers to the state's GeoTracker website, which is the formal authority on the cleanup process. In addition, we have requested both Valco and the county to provide direct updates to city staff as well. As public documents become available, we will continue to post them on our website. Despite the contaminant delays, 2 ministerial permits for small portions of the site on the west side have been released and will be posted on the city's website this week. However, any soil disturbances are not allowed until the county believes the contaminant issues have been resolved to the county's satisfaction. That's my final update on the Valco project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greg. I do see a couple of hands raised, one from the public and one from Vice Mayor Chow. So let's just be very brief about this. Video, if you could set a minute, I'm just going to apply that to both comments here. Peggy, did you want to speak on the city manager's report? I see your hand is raised.
Yes, I just, very brief. I'd like to thank City Manager Greg Larson for stepping in and doing a fantastic job as our city manager. You've helped us move forward and we appreciate it. Thank you. That's all.
Great, thank you, Peggy. And next, Vice Mayor Chow.
Yeah, ditto on the thank you. On a great report, I wonder if we could, is there a written version that might be posted on the web page of Valco project that public could easily have access?
I didn't hear the adjective. A what update?
Great overall report. I wonder if a written version would be posted on the project website so that the public can easily access update.
I will try to do that tomorrow. I know at a minimum we'll be posting the additional information we have this week. And I just will note that this was not agendized for further discussion. I viewed the Vice Mayor's comment as simply a procedural one that I'm responding to and I will address tomorrow. So thank you.
Okay, very good. Let's go on to item number, I believe it was 29 on our agenda. Let's start with, Vice Mayor, your hand is still raised, so let us go ahead and I take it that there's no staff report on this item since it's the second reading of an ordinance for the cleanup of our legal language in the municipal code. So let's go ahead and start with this. I don't see any members of the public with hands raised either. So let's start this item. Madam City Clerk, would you conduct the second reading of this ordinance at this point?
This is the second reading and enactment of ordinance number 21-2234, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cupertino to update the municipal code to improve city operations and bring the city municipal code up to date by one, enacting new sections 2.36.085 and 2.74.075 and new chapter 2.110. Two, amending sections 1.12.010, 2.48.020, 2.60.050, 2.68.050, 2.74.040, 2.80.090, 2.86.070, 2.92.090, 3.23.060, 8.06.030, 14.04.125, 14.18.090, 16.52.043, 16.52.053, 18.04.020, 19.102.030, and 19.104.220, and table 19.124.040, and 3, repealing section 11.08.020.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. And I'll go back to the members of the public. We still don't have any hands raised. And so we'll move back to City Council. I would like to ask for a motion from City Council that the second reading of ordinance number 21-2234 be conducted and that the city clerk's reading constitute the only reading thereof, and that City Council pass the second reading as well as enact the ordinance. Would anyone like to make that motion? Vice Mayor Chow, your hand is raised first. But before we get to you. Okay, so you have the motion on the table. Mr. City Attorney Jensen, did you have a comment to make before I ask for a second on this motion?
I did just want to note for the record that there was a supplemental submission and it corrects typographical errors in section 2.48020E2. So I just wanted to make sure that council was aware of that correction for the record.
Okay, let me go back to Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor, can you please confirm that your motion encompasses what City Attorney Jensen just described?
Yes,
Okay, great. Councilmember Willie, would you like to second Vice Mayor Chow's motion?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So I don't see any further hands raised at this point, and so I will go ahead and ask the city clerk to conduct a roll call vote on this item, on this motion.
Councilmember Moore,
Aye.
Councilmember Way,
I,
Councilmember Willie,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow,
aye.
Mayor Paul,
Aye.
motion carries unanimously.
Okay, we are on to item number 30. This falls under public hearings. The subject is to consider modifications to the approved Westport Development Project, which include adjusting unit mix in the living facility, which is building 1, to 123 assisted living units, 25 memory care rooms, reclassification of approximately 8,000 square feet of public dining area to private dining, reducing the underground parking to reflect adjustments in uses, and reduction of massing on the top floor to accommodate a 6th floor aquatherapy pool with the application numbers as provided in the agenda. And give me one moment, please. And that is the subject. Would anyone from staff like to introduce this with a presentation? I see our Director of Community Development and Planning in the other order, rather, Planning and Community Development, Ben Fu, has turned on his camera. We have Jean Martyr as well, Senior Planner from that department. Would you gentlemen like to provide the staff presentation for this item?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Ben Fu, Director of Community Development. Thank you for the introduction, Mr. Mayor. You basically outlined the proposed modifications and changes that the applicant has proposed for tonight. I had an introduction, but I think in consideration of time, I'll just go ahead and hand it off to John Martyr to present. He has some slides. We'll go through those pretty quickly. Basically, the application was approved by council August last year, 2020, and the applicant is now back making some adjustments as outlined by the mayor. With that, John, would you continue our presentation, please?
Thank you, Ben. First question is can everyone hear me okay?
Yes,
Thank
you're
you.
very welcome. Thank you.
I had some audio issues this week, so I'm glad that's been resolved. Thank you again, Ben, for the introduction. I'm John Martyr, Senior Planner with Community Development Department. I've been the city's project manager for this application since pretty much 2018 when they first applied. So yes, as introduced and read by the mayor, about the modification, the subject of the modification, go through that. A little background on what was approved and what is the basis of the project. The project location is the former Oaks Shopping Center, and this is known as the Westport Cupertino development. Surrounding the site is a mix of uses. It's within the heart of the city-specific plan area, and it's part of the Oaks Gateway. You'll hear some terminology as building 1, building 2, row house, a townhome. So this is a quick overview of, on this slide, just to familiarize everyone with and orient them as to what we're talking about. So building 1 is the approved 131 unit senior mixed use and 27 memory care room building, or as the assisted living facility. Building 2 is a 48 unit BMR senior mixed use building. Then we have the 70 townhome condominiums right there, as well as 18 row house and condominiums on the western edge of the project site. And again, the project data, we have 2 residential commercial buildings, building 1, again, which is the 6-story building with 131 senior residential units, memory care and retail. Building 2, again, 6-story building with 48 below market rate senior residential units, 2,400 square feet of retail. And then with the single 70, with the townhome row house component as well. Since this was approved in August of 2020, the applicant the developers have come in to modify the project in 2 separate occasions. The first was with the director's minor modification, and that was approved on June 29th of this year. Essentially, this was revised the underground garage layout to limit the footprint to under the building one and add additional subterranean level. I can go into this a little more detail later on in the presentation. And the second was the revision to the vesting tentative map to subdivide the property into 3 parcels, A, B, and C, in order for the BMR building to be on its own separate parcel. And this was approved September 7th, 2021. So the current project revision to the West Point project is to reclassify 8,000 square foot ground floor dining facility to be limited to residents of Building 1 and their guests. This is along the sickle portion of Building 1, which is facing Mary Avenue. Adjusting the unit mix, adding more 2-bedroom units, reducing student units, adding 8 memory care rooms while decreasing the unit count by 8. Reducing parking space count by 63 spaces to account for the dining facility being open only to residents and their guests. Further revisions have to do with some minor physical modifications to the exterior of Building 1. This include accommodating a 6th floor aquatherapy pool. Some other minor changes to building, lowering the retail ceiling from 20 feet to approximately 16 feet. Relocating the memory care terrace from the eastern side of the sickle portion of the building to the western side, as well as increasing the depth of the sickle portion building along Mary Avenue by 5.5 feet. The approval authority, this was referred to council directly by the director as pursuant to Cupertino Municipal Code, Chapter 1912. So originally, this project was approved with a heart of city exception for the limited amount of retail along Stevens Creek Boulevard. As you may recall, 75% of all building frontage along Stevens Creek Boulevard should be dedicated to direct retailing of services or goods to the public, and with no more than 50% of the with a minimum of 50% of the rear of those buildings being the same. The approval back in August 2020 provided 60% of the frontage along Stevens Creek Boulevard, approximately 25% of the rear of the buildings to direct retail and goods and services, which equated about 20,000 square feet if you included the portions along Mary Avenue. The council have found at the time that the busy boulevard would be challenging to lease, particularly because it's adjacent to the 85 on-ramp. Further, that the same square footage of retail provided, 20,000 square feet, is what would have been needed to meet the heart of the city retail standard of 20,330 square feet. Visibility, because of its location by pedestrian motorists, would be difficult. So it would be best to cluster the retail space around the corner of Mary Avenue and Stevens Creek Boulevard to be more successful. However, the applicants come back to say that, well, the dining room that would be accessible to the public as previously approved would be contradictory to state law and for other reasons, namely that all employees and volunteers that work with an assisted living facility must undergo thorough criminal background checks, and that any member of the public going in there that's not either a guest or actual resident of the facility would need to go through the same. That the state places extra protocols and procedures on assisted living communities and their staff for safety of residents. And since the facility would provide 3 meals per day as part of the services provided to the assisted living facility, in order to supervise, outside members of the public to come in, there would be an impossible task or an added task for those employees of the facility. Again, the applicants are here, and they could probably better describe the challenges having open dining facility and the issues that would run counter to state law better than I could. So here's a floor plan to show on the left what was approved in August 2020, and on the right what is proposed. As you can see, the loss of the proposed retail along Mary Avenue. However, the applicant has added retail along the Stevens Creek frontage, where before it was only 95% to say of the building one frontage along Stevens Creek would be dedicated to retail. Now, as you see in the red circle, the applicant has converted 400 square feet of previously approved lobby space into dedication to retail use right there. So going from approximately 95% to 100% of the frontage of building one being dedicated to retail. Memory care rooms and assisted living count, how's that been revised? So again, due to market trends, the applicant is proposed to increase the memory care rooms by 8 from 27 to 35 rooms, and decrease the units from the assisted living units from 131 to 123. As you can see right here, one of the findings that City Council had to make for general plan conformance with the below market rate manual was that there had to be a degree of comparability between the assisted living units, essentially the market rate units, and those of the BMR building. One of the standards for comparability was that the units had to be of equal mix and size. As you can see, the approved building one mix and sizes were essentially equal to those of the building two. However, the proposed building one mix is slightly off. So going from 20% studios to down to 10%, one bedroom from 56% to 61%, and from two bedroom from 24% to 29%. So we have an increase of percentages of the unit count from going up for the one bedroom, two bedroom, and the amount of studios going down considerably. And again, the applicant has stated in their application, this is in response to market demand. And so part of the decision of council tonight, and I'll go into this a little bit further later, is to see if this is still, in the view of council, comparable to what the unit mix is of the BMR building. And this is what the direct language from the BMR manual in terms of the BMR standard for comparability. Underlined is what I had just been discussing, the unit type, number of bedrooms per unit. So the parking analysis, because of the proposed change of the public dining facility to a private dining facility, the parking demand has been reduced. So the prior parking demand for buildings 1 and 2 was 255, is now gone down to 192, and that amount of unit those amount of spaces have been provided, with the exception that of the senior units in building 1, 80 of those spaces would be 40 of those spaces would be serviced by stackers. So 80 spaces would have to be run and operated by a valet service, as well as a parking service that residents would not be allowed to operate. So those who have knowledge in those stackers would have to operate themselves. One of the things, there's a clarification of parking and the parking analysis in the staff report. The total required for both buildings 1 and 2 is 192. So the applicant is actually providing 192, equal to what is being required. So there is no overage of parking stalls between those two buildings. Really quick, the parking analysis right here. So just to show you what was approved from DIR originally back in June, we see that the light gray outline is what was approved in August. To show what was approved in June was a dark gray. Essentially, it was a consolidation of the underground parking all under building 1. Instead of going single level, it was approved to be double level underground. And this no parking at that time, no reduction of parking was proposed. And again, this was done with the intent that this would speed up the And again, this was done with KT Urban and also in conjunction with the developers of the BMR building to speed up not only speed up the project by 3 months or more, but also to reduce costs on the development building too by changing the type of foundation to slab on grade for building 2. And so the current proposal is on your right, which shows the blue parking spaces dedicated to building 2 with the stackers over here, stacking parking spaces over here identified with the letter S. And this is, excuse me, and this is an example of what the stackers would look like. Building 1 physical modifications, again, to accommodate 6th-floor aquatherapy pool. Minor changes, again, lowering the ceiling height, relocated memory care terrace, and increasing the depth of the sickle portion of the building. So we can see the entitled 6th floor, which shows what was that there's no pool, and then the proposed 6th floor floor plan with the pool. On the western portion of the floor, what we see here is again a decrease in the massing along this area of the building as well. We can see the depth over here. We had some questions about this, what it would look like. So currently was approved is a 63.5 feet width over here, and on this side you have 69 feet. You can also see where the memory care terrace is proposed to be moved from the western portion, I'm sorry, from the east portion of the sickle part of the building to the west, facing inward rather than outward towards Mary. Common open space, just some more clarifications of the with the total of 259 units throughout the whole development, including the townhome row houses, the Harvest City would require about 38,850 square feet of common open space. What is entitled is about 44,945 square feet, and what is proposed is about 44,464. There is a slight loss of common open space with the expansion of the widening of the sickle portion of building 1, but then that's mostly going to be within the common green area that's surrounded by building 1. And again, environmental review, that there's, staff had found there's no with the proposal, there's no major change to the EIR that was approved in August 2020. So there's 4 resolutions attached to this staff report. 3 of them were approving of the modification. 1 was for denial. So staff gave some recommendations in terms of if the council were to deny the proposed modifications of the Westport project. We gave some ways to find for the denial, and one is that the modifications are consistent with the BMR manual standard for comparability, as the below market rate units in building 2 are of a different mix of those of building 1. And that the restaurant retail provided along Mary Avenue, exception from the HOC retail standard, involved lease modification or deviation from development regulations prescribed in this chapter necessary to accomplish reasonable use of the parcel. That was one of the findings originally, and that had to do with the fact that the Mary Avenue portion, by adding retail on the Mary Avenue portion, although not required, basically equated to the same amount of square footage as would have been required had it all been along Stevens Creek Boulevard. However, the staff report also noted that if the council were to find the modifications consistent with or wanted to approve the project, there's some ways to find that the project can be approved, and that this is consistent, that the council does still find, even with the unit mix changes, that it's still consistent with the BMR manual standard of comparability. And that the HOC exception for original project was approved because development frontage is adjacent to the on-ramp of Highway 85, and that the commercial component is not required to be located along secondary streets of Mary Avenue. That alone could have been grounds enough to find that the Hardwick City exception could have been granted in that case alone. Next step, that the city council's decision will be final unless reconsidered within 10 days of the decision. And I'll try to be as brief as possible. So that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, John. Greatly appreciated. So in the interest of some efficiency, let's go to some comments from the public. I have 3 hands raised at this point. They are from Donna Austin, Jennifer Griffin, and Peggy Griffin. Joseph Way has also raised his hand at this time, as well as Richard Adler and Connie Cunningham. And so I'm going to ask that our speakers keep their comments succinct. We'll go ahead and provide the 3 minutes. However, you'll need to have your hands raised to members of the public before our first speaker, Donna Austin, has concluded her comments. And so welcome, Donna.
Mute, okay. Hello, you can hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Yes, Mayor Darcy Paul and Vice Mayor Liang Chow, I congratulate you on your new or continued service to our community. And I think that this Westport development is going to be could be one of your legacies and great for PR. It's a wonderful, wonderful project. 60% of Cupertino people are over 60 years old. And there is no housing or no provision for the older people here in I shouldn't say older, I should say younger maybe. But I urge the city council to approve the Atria project. It's very special. It's designed for special needs that seniors would have within the housing where they could be part of it. The synergy of being part of the whole community is what's wonderful there. And the access to all of the community benefits. The Westport and related Atria projects is so wonderful to me as a senior and important to the quality of life. I've lived in Cupertino and I love it, and I would like to continue living here. When my husband and I need that extra care, that special need, then it would be wonderful to have this kind of place to go. I love the integration of this plan and its synergy with the whole community. And I just hope I live long enough for this project to be approved. In particular, of concern is the memory units. There are 18 memory units at the Forum and 23 at Sunnyview. There are no memory units at Chateau Cupertino, and there's no place to go for permanent housing for people that need memory care. And this would be such a wonderful asset. Tonight, the Atria is proposing to add 8 vitally needed memory care units to the project from 27 to 35. Please, please, please approve this change that is so important to us as seniors. This is so vital to our senior care and would benefit by this addition to the Cupertino housing needs. So that's all I can say is that I love it, and I hope you will approve it with these changes that are vital because they're part of Atria's and law, the law too. So it really is a great project. Thank you.
Donna. Appreciate it. Our additional speakers, now that Donna is done speaking, are our list from previous, as well as JB and Stephen Scharf. Our next speaker is Jennifer Griffin. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor Darcy. Hi, I'm Jennifer Griffin, and there's a lot going on this property. We have some very valuable resources here. I just had a couple of comments. I've been very, very concerned about the loss of retail on Stevens Creek Boulevard now, especially since people have been trying to shop in town. And, just because something is on the off-ramp in front of the Oaks, I'm going to call it the Oaks because that's basically what it was for the last 50 years, doesn't mean that people don't see and that there is retail there. It's always been like that at this shopping center. So what exactly are we doing with the retail on Stevens Creek Boulevard? I mean, myself as a shopper, I don't really like to be told that I won't shop at a site because it's on Stevens Creek Boulevard. I mean, I know the area, believe me. Okay, the other question I had is what is going on with these stackers? I think these are very, very dangerous types of um, stacking for car. I would not park my car in one of these. And are we expecting seniors to be parking on these? Why are we using things like this? How do you operate them? What are they doing there? I mean, I'm sorry, this is Cupertino, you know, it's a small town. Stackers are like something from New York City. Can we go over that? I don't think a lot of seniors could use a stacker. Um, the other thing is, okay, why is this dining room? I thought it was supposed to be a cafe. Why is the public being excluded? I can understand about memory care, but to me, this just seems like an attempt to reduce the amount of parking. I also want to make sure that any amenities that are in these separate buildings are the same. I'm very, very concerned that we're excluding one group. The BMR people are going to get something cheap and shoddy, and everybody else is going to be, you know, fancy, wancy or whatever. Yeah, sorry. I just think there's so much going on in this project that we have to make sure that we examine everything. And I am really, really upset about the loss of retail, especially at this site. Uh, if you can impress me, please do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our next speaker is Peggy Griffin. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening, Mayor Paul, council members, and staff. I'd like to thank Gian for his report and detailed presentation. I request that you deny this change for reasons described in the staff report. Giving up almost 50% of the minuscule retail the approved project has is unacceptable. It's public. It was sold to the public and the council as a restaurant, not a dining facility. The removal of almost 8,000 square feet of retail hurts residents of the BMR, the townhouses, row houses, and surrounding community, and our city, not to mention putting another nail in the coffin of public trust. Page 2 of the letter from Matthew Witt and Mark Alexander states moving the dining facility to the 3rd floor would require both prohibitively long walks by residents coming from the Stevens Creek wing of the building and guest access. Yet there was no qualms about removing the parking under the BMR building and forcing all senior affordable housing residents to go up an elevator, out a door, across the street, through a second door, and up another elevator to access their units. That to me is prohibitively long walk. Page 2 of the letter also says that relocating the dining facility to another location would require an increase in the building square footage or a reduction to the number of units and amenities. Well, they can start with not increasing the size of their units, which they do in this proposal. Over 1,236 square feet, 500 open space, 736 square feet of units is additional space they've added. And it makes the comparability of BMR to market rate units not comparable as required by our city BMR regulations. Parking, I also want to bring up the undisclosed change to the BMR parking. The staff report and the city website has no mention of a director's minor modification change to the BMR parking. Moving the BMR parking out from under the BMR building number 2 was not mentioned in the staff report or in the city's website. It wasn't mentioned during the tentative map review or the final map review. I don't know what the current complete plans for the projects are. Do you? There are more details. Hang on. There are more details in attachment E, the letter, than there are in attachment F, the plans. Which are we being asked to approve? Everything is piecemeal, no complete plans of both buildings. Do
Thank
you
you.
know what you're approving? Deny this request.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joseph Way. Welcome, Joseph. I'm getting a message on my window stating that allow to talk is not available because Joseph is using an older version of Zoom. You need to promote Joseph Way to a panelist to talk. So Joseph, to give your remarks, I need to promote you to a panelist, which I will do now. And you don't need to turn on your camera. Just hold on for a second while we allow you to talk. Okay. So Joseph, please unmute your microphone and you may begin your comments.
Yes, actually, I would like to defer to Richard Alder and also Jean Bedford. We three of us are representing age-friendly Cupertino Task Force. So
Okay,
we have a sequence how we're going to present.
Okay, I'll put you back in the attendees then. Okay, so at this point, we'll consolidate the time of Richard Adler as well as Joseph Way. And I think was it Jean Bedord who was the third person? I'm assuming that is JB. And so the remaining speakers can lower their hands. And let me ask Richard, are you going to be providing the presentation?
I can speak for him, Mayor. Yes, he is, as well as Jean Bedord, who will speak after.
Okay. And so if video can go ahead and, I know we have an equation for calculating the time. It's not quite 9 minutes, but let me just ask that the speakers keep their comments concise. And video, you can go ahead and set it at the 9. And Richard, welcome. Richard, we're not actually hearing you. You might need to unmute your device. Okay, let me see if I can unmute Jean Bedord at this point to see if that is workable.
This is Jean Bedord, and I have unmuted myself. Let's see if Richard can go first.
We can hear you, Jean, but unfortunately, we're not able to hear Richard.
Okay, well, I will go ahead then. And I am JB. The way the Zoom thing worked, it only got my initials. Good evening. My name is Jean Bedord, and I've lived in Cupertino for 30 years. I'm president of the Cupertino Senior Center Advisory Council, but tonight I'm speaking as a citizen member of the Age-Friendly Cupertino Task Force. Next slide. Our community is aging, like it or not. Approximately 1/3 of households in Cupertino have at least one resident over the age of 60. Households with at least 2 older persons can function at a higher level, just because there are more than one person to share the tasks of daily living. Cupertino has many large homes occupied by 1 or 2 people, with very limited options to move into more appropriate housing. These older adults want to stay in their community, much like Donna, close to their friends, family, and medical providers where they have lived for 30, 40, or 50 years or even longer. Now, the needs of older adults change over time. Loss of a spouse can suddenly turn a functioning 2-person household into a single-person household with more elder care needs. One spouse may move to memory care, leaving the well spouse as a single-person household. Atria meets that need. Slide 3. There aren't many choices to make a housing change in Cupertino. There's 6,585 households with a resident over 60. When those residents need additional care, there's a grand total of 687 units available, about 10% of our older adult households. Furthermore, most of those units require buying into a life community, a CCRC. Where are the memory units? Where's the rental assisted living? Not in Cupertino until the Westport Atria project. Slide 4. The upcoming year will be challenging for our city as it develops the housing element for the next 8 years. However, this is also an opportunity to consider housing needs that are not counted in RHNA, which requires kitchens in every unit. Shared kitchens are found in other types of badly needed housing that are not single-family residents. In particular, our community needs memory care units, as well as additional projects for lower-cost senior housing with shared kitchens. As you consider modifications to Building 1 for the Westport Atria project, look beyond RHNA and consider community needs, particularly for memory care. We need it now. Thank you.
Okay, and so I believe that the remaining time was yielded to Richard Adler, who I don't see with a hand raised. So we'll go back to Richard if he comes back on. I actually do see his hand raised now. Richard, welcome back. Are you able to? Unfortunately, we still can't hear you, Richard. So let's see if we can get those technical issues resolved. At this point, I'll go ahead and call on Connie Cunningham. Welcome, Connie.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. My name is Connie Cunningham. I am a 34-year resident of Cupertino, a senior resident. I'm also chair of the Housing Commission, but tonight I speak for myself only. I enthusiastically support the requested modifications to the approved Westport project. It is urgent to make this final approval and bring this facility into operation for all the reasons that Jean Bedore stated in her task force update on the status of aging in our community. There is a lack of memory care units in Cupertino, and the need is growing. From the community, there has been a demand for 2-bedroom units in assisted living facilities. I support the changes, including the number of assisted living homes and memory care homes, the change to the classification of the assisted living dining area, and the changes to the parking, among other changes described. These senior homes will be integrated into the community in a way that makes it a destination for the residents there and the surrounding community. Senior housing has been successfully advocated by the community to the Housing Commission and to the City Council. This past year, the City Council put senior strategy as a priority item on the FY 2021-22 City Work Program. Housing is a big piece of that strategy. Senior housing has been a critical and growing need in Cupertino due to the aging of our population. Westport provides a much needed number of homes of differing income levels, ages, and health needs. 48 senior below market rate homes are part of this overall project and are a significant addition to the mix of homes available to seniors in Cupertino. We do not have these homes in our city at this point. This particular location has added benefits for seniors. It has access to transportation, businesses, the senior center, and De Anza College for lifelong learning. This housing will keep seniors in a diverse community of ages, which is important for retaining social interactions and mental health. In closing, I urge you to approve the requested modifications to the project, which improve the original project. It is urgent to make this final approval and bring this facility into operation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Connie. Our next and final speaker is Stephen Scharf. Welcome, Stephen.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, welcome.
Great, thank you. I'm speaking only for myself, and I would like to say in 2021, I did become an official senior. And I agree with the other speakers. Cupertino needs senior housing, and they need both market rate and below market rate, as other speakers have eloquently stated. But I'm very disappointed to see these major changes to a project that was already approved by the Planning Commission and City Council. The loss of open space, the loss of the restaurant, the elimination of parking under the BMR housing, the valet parking and the stackers, the changes in unit sizes, the lack of comparability of the BMR units with the market rate units, all of these make this a completely different project than what was originally approved. And this was a great project that was originally approved. As mayor and city council member, I voted for it enthusiastically. Now it's essentially a different project. It's especially disappointing to see the worsening of the BMR portion of the project, including the worsening of the BMR parking. With all these changes, the project needs to go back to the Planning Commission and the process needs to begin over. I would urge the City Council to not approve these major changes that worsen the project. This is not the same project that was originally approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And I do see Richard Adler is back with a hand raised, and so I will see if his microphone is working. Welcome, Richard.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, welcome.
I think I figured out what the problem was. I'm not going to go through my whole presentation. If you would just go to the last slide. It is certainly true, and I think Jean really made the point well, that there's a substantial number of seniors in Cupertino already. That number is growing, and that the demand for senior housing in Cupertino is substantially larger than the supply and continues to grow. And in particular, the need is great for more memory care capacity. So I think the increase in the number of memory care units is important. It is also true, I think, that senior housing generally has been responding to a demand for larger living units. The Forum, for example, up near Rancho San Antonio, recently added 24 what they call villas, which are substantially larger dwelling units than any of the existing. And the reason they did that was to respond to the market need and to keep themselves competitive. So I think it's really responding to a real need. Let me finally just talk to the issue of the dining facility. This is an assisted living community. That means that a large portion of the residents who will live in this facility will be frail or have some disability. And so getting all of the residents into the dining room, getting them fed and getting them out and then back to their units is not a simple undertaking. And I think not only legally, but just practically, trying to run an assisted living congregate dining room at the same time that you were running a public restaurant just seems to me to be incompatible with the needs. This isn't just housing for older people. It is an assisted living community, which is a very distinctive product. And I think the fact that Atria has done this, I think something like 400 times all over the US, that they really understand the requirements and the practical needs for supporting a population like this. I think that the combination of the Atria assisted living, the independent below market rate units, plus the senior center and De Anza College across the street will create a new kind of senior neighborhood for Cupertino that really will add to the quality of the options in the city. The loss of retail is unfortunate, but I think the addition of a really vibrant senior
15
community of this kind is even more important. So I would urge the council to approve what I see as relatively minor changes.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Let's bring this back up to council. At this point, I will ask for any council comments. I'll do a quick time check. Let's go ahead and have a first round of comments from council. I'll let you know when you're going on 3 minutes. And let's have a round prior to entertaining a motion at this point. So we first have Councilmember Willie, followed by Councilmember Way.
Yeah, can we get that picture of the stackers back up? I mean, this is
Okay.
And,
I think
and
that
then
was
the
probably-
questions pertain to the stackers.
Yeah.
Yes, give me 2 seconds.
Both, okay, yeah, both the top view showing where the stackers are, and then the view of the stacker. So if we start with this one. So who's going to be using these stackers? Is it going to be the seniors, or is it only going to be for non-seniors?
So the stackers will be operated by the employees of the building. The seniors won't be. They won't have the ability to operate the stackers themselves. It'll be some type of valet service that will operate these stackers.
So all the stackers then get operated by some type of employee.
Correct.
Okay. I'll stop at that point right now because that definitely clarifies a concerning point, you know, where seniors who are already frail and having walkers and trying to get around and in and out of cars in this type of configuration. Yeah, so, okay, I'll pass it back.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Willie. Next, we have Councilmember Way. I do see a hand from one of the applicants, and this is a representative, Atria. Did you want to speak, sir? I apologize if I'm getting your last name incorrect. Matt Woody? And so you'll need to unmute your microphone if you want to be heard.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I don't know if we're going to be given a chance to present. We have a presentation that we were hoping to address some of the questions that were raised, including the one that was just raised, or if you prefer to go through the other questions, we can present afterwards. But I do have a response to Councilman Willie's question.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, let me go through the round with council comments at this point, since we're 1 down, 4 to go. And we'll provide you your amount of time. And about how long would you need for your presentation?
Well, we can make it as short or as long as you like. I was told we would have 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. Okay, so let's go through those initial council comments. And so I don't see, okay, so Councilmember Way, you have your hand raised.
Actually, I would like to see the presentation first.
Okay, Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you. I don't see what page that the density bonus units have been labeled on. I don't see the density bonus table, if somebody could point that out to me. So we can see how many density bonus units the project qualifies for now versus previously, how many density bonus units were not used in the project. I'd like to have that table provided for us, and I want it clarified for the council. So it looks like what happened was that there was a project change that went to just the city staff back in June of this year, and that removed what you could call an amenity or a benefit to the below market rate building. And so the seniors previously had parking in their subterranean garage with their own elevators that they could go up, because the garage went under the entirety of both buildings. So they had this benefit there, which was comparable for both the seniors at the BMR building and the seniors at the market rate building. Well, that went away through a modification that staff approved. And this didn't go to the design review committee for any architectural review to see if there were changes to parking. And it didn't go to the planning commission to discuss. It was done by staff. And then when the staff report went to the city planning commission, it said no changes to the parking. So there was no way for them to have any discussion about it because it wasn't being told to them. And then when it came to the city council, we were told in the table that there were no changes to parking. So now I see that we have below market rate unit parking over in the market rate subterranean garage. So that's a big change. But the first thing I really want to know, I want to make sure that City Council has that square, that everybody understands it. And what I want to also know is the density bonus units that they are actually qualified to have, because it looks like it's 38.75% of the base units, and I'm coming up with 94 density bonus units, and I think that only 16 are being used for the project, and by our municipal code, those are supposed to be labeled on the plan, and I would like to know where those are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Moore. That was actually exactly 3 minutes. Next we have, so our interim city manager Larson has a hand raised. Did you want to make a comment, Greg?
Yes, I will let staff or the applicant respond to the density bonus units because I don't have that information in front of me, but I did want to address that the table that was presented to both the Planning Commission and the Council for the mapping approval was the number of parking spaces. And there were no changes to the number of parking spaces, which is all that was referenced in the table. There was no other discussion in that table of any other parking components. And both the Planning Commission and the Council were notified of the director's minor modification to move one level of underground parking from one building to another building. So both the Planning Commission and Council were notified of that. So I'll let staff or the applicant respond to the density bonus question.
Okay, thank you, Greg. And I don't see any further hands raised from council at this point. So I'll go ahead and move this to the applicant. And video, if you could set the timer at 10 minutes, you'll have, as the applicants, 10 minutes to make your presentation. And Mr. Woody, you'll have to turn on your microphone.
Mayor Paul, council members, thank you for the opportunity to give you some additional information beyond what staff has already presented. You've heard from members of the senior community that we have been working with over the last year. And I'd like to just start out, if we can put our screen share up. My colleague Cascade Zach will share her screen. And there's a couple of key slides that we'd like to include. Is that possible that while I'm talking, she can share her screen?
She should be able to, as a panelist.
All right. Well, anyway, while she's trying to put that up, let me say that a year ago when the project, the master plan for Westport Cupertino was processed and approved by the council, we had not yet finalized our business relationship with KT Urban, the master plan developer. As soon as we did get involved later last year and early into this year, we began working with the members of the senior community, including age-friendly Cupertino. And a number of the changes that you have been presented today derived from feedback that we got from members of the senior community who potentially would be the residents that this project is serving. Next slide, please. Just very briefly, I am a principal in the related companies of California, and I am with my colleague Mark Alexander from Atria. We have partnered on this and a number of other projects around the country. We're very experienced developers of multifamily housing, having built over 17,000 units in California, of which 12,000 are affordable. We are arguably one of the largest affordable housing developers in the country. So we're very familiar with the BMR requirements for financing. We are not the developer of that building. And so some of the changes that you've seen tonight are not initiated by us, but were in fact initiated by KT Urban and Pacific Communities who's developing that building. And I'd let Mark Tersini from KT Urban speak to the reasons for that if the council is interested. Next slide, please. As was commented on, Atria is one of the largest, if not the largest, operators of senior assisted living in the country with over 400 communities. And we are pleased to have Mark Alexander here to speak to some of the operational needs of this building, which are very different than a traditional multifamily building, as I think has been preliminarily expressed. Next slide, please. So I just want to set the tone for why these modifications have come before the council this evening. I mentioned that when the project was approved, we were just starting to get involved with the design of the building. The building had previously been planned as a condominium building, and we've maintained the exterior and massing and architecture of that building without any significant changes, but the interior of it functions quite differently. The first change that's been discussed this evening with respect to the public access to the dining room was really a misunderstanding. Legally, and we've provided the council a letter from our outside counsel, from Atria's outside counsel, explaining that the Department of Social Services regulates these assisted living facilities in California. And legally, we could not operate the dining room as a public dining room. That letter is attached to this presentation. From that derives the reduction in parking. Again, these were not decisions made by us to make the building cheaper, less operationally pragmatic in any way, but to make the building possible. Because frankly, the way the building was approved last year would not have been legally possible to operate. But maybe more importantly than all of that is the fact that we have a philosophy, and Atria has a philosophy of wanting to integrate our building and our residents into the larger community in which the site is located. And really, there is no better site in the South Bay than this site for that, for the reasons that we'll go through in a minute. As part of our effort to make the building better, not worse, we've spent a lot of time talking to our immediate neighbors at De Anza College and the Senior Center, and as I mentioned, the Age-Friendly Cupertino Task Force. And one of the comments that came out, which you'll see on the next slide, is the ability to draw the public into the central green of the Westport project. It's true that the requirements for retail will be reduced because the ground floor of this building can only accommodate so many things. But it's also true that the 10,000 square feet of retail that faces Stevens Creek and around the corner to Mary Avenue will really be very useful retail to bring the public into the central green, which is really the ideal place to integrate our residents, the townhouse and row house residents, the apartment residents above us, and members of the larger community in the senior center. Next slide, please. So if you focus on one part of our presentation, I would encourage you to look at this slide because it really tells the story better than I can. The green arrows attempt to show how the public at large would flow through the retail in the Stevens Creek portion of our building on the ground floor into the central green from the townhouses and the BMR building across the street, which is a relatively modest 40 or 50 foot wide street, and from the senior center on the other side of Mary Avenue into our retail along Stevens Creek and through the building into the green. Next slide, please. Now, I think this slide really tells in more detail, addresses some of the questions that were raised. We have added, not subtracted, but added features since last summer when the master plan was approved. The first thing we've done, as a staff member mentioned, is we've increased the amount of retail facing onto Stevens Creek and Mary Avenue. So we now exceed the code requirements, heart of the city requirements, both on the Stevens Creek side and also on the central green side. Yes, the piece that was in blue on the slide on the left as a, in theory, publicly owned, publicly accessible dining room is now no longer publicly accessible, but that's because it legally cannot be. However, all of the retail along Stevens Creek, and we believe a good portion of it could be food and beverage, would have the ability to have outside al fresco dining on the central green and also along the landscaped area on the Mary Avenue side of the project, adjacent to what we expect to be a cafe. In addition, we would allow the public to come through the building to the central green if they were coming from the other side of Mary Avenue. But I have to point out, and I think Richard Adler made this point, that this type of facility is a highly regulated facility for the benefit of the welfare of its residents. So any member of the public coming through has to meet certain Department of Social Services requirements. And there's nothing we or anybody else can do to get around that. So that's a very important consideration. as you think about the requested modifications. Next slide, please. This is the letter. I won't read it, but it's available to the council members to detail the specific reasons why the dining room cannot be open to the public. Next slide, please. Parking is reduced, but still meets the code, and it's reduced because the dining room was previously considered to be open to the public. Now it will be used by the residents whose parking requirements have been accounted for already in the parking requirements. Next slide, please. And this shows what you've already seen from staff, where the parking would go. With respect to the stackers, I want to address a question that was raised. The residents and their visitors will be provided parking 100% provided by a valet employed by the operation of the building. The retail parking will be on the street. Next slide, please. So anybody coming to the center to shop will be self-parked on the street in the spaces shown in orange. Spaces shown in blue here and on the previous slide are the spaces for the BMR building. And again, the decision to move that parking from under the BMR building to our building was not initiated by us. We've agreed to accommodate that. And my understanding was it was a way to make the BMR building more affordable to build. Next slide, please. In the short time that I have left, I'd just like to speak to the other two issues that were raised here about unit mix changing. Again, to build a building like this for the next 30, 40, 50 years to serve the residents of Cupertino, it would only make sense to build what the market demands. And the market demands have changed over many years. As members of Age Friendly Cupertino have pointed out, both with respect to the size of the units, the desire for more two-bedroom units, and the type of units, memory care, both of which are undersupplied in the South Bay and specifically in Cupertino. This is really the city's best opportunity to get those kinds of units available as soon as possible. With that, I'll stop, and my colleague Mark Alexander from Atria is also available to answer any of the questions that may come up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matt and Mark. Let's go ahead and bring this back to council for any further questions or comments. Having had an opportunity to go through a round of commentary as well as to listen to the applicant's presentation, is there a will or desire on anyone from council to put forward a motion on the table for purposes of discussion? I see one hand is raised by Councilmember Way, or actually Vice Mayor Chow, and then Councilmember Way, and then Councilmember Willie. Vice Mayor Chow, did you have a motion that you want to put on the table? And you'll need to unmute if you want to be heard.
No, I have a comment.
You have a comment? Okay, let me go to Councilmember Willie with regard to that. Councilmember Willie?
No, I think we need to really discuss our concern. The options that we have are just too varied to put a motion out.
Well, okay, very good. So I'll take the comments in order, but let me first go to Councilmember Way. Councilmember Way, did you want to put a motion on the table for discussion?
Yes, Mayor Paul, because you said we can make a motion for discussion purposes. That's how things go, right?
Well, I'm calling for a motion. If no one brings forward a motion, then we'll have another round of commentary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Did you want to bring forth a motion, Councilmember Way?
Let's discuss it first.
Okay, very good. So the order was Vice Mayor Chow, followed by Councilmember Willie and Councilmember Way. Vice Mayor Chow.
Okay, so I'll share something. Just the staff mentioned oh, I'm unmuted, right?
Yes.
So the staff mentioned a notice is sent to the Council and Planning Commission about my director's minor modification on July 1st. I looked it up. This was in my email. From this description, I have no idea what's
Sorry,
being
Vice Mayor, do you have a phone in your background?
Yeah, I have an alarm, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
from this description to consolidate under building one, what's building one of the Westmont project? Anyway, from the description, I couldn't tell what is this consolidation, and I click on the link. It goes to some page that doesn't lead me anywhere. That's the notification we got. So what we have here is, I tried to figure out, okay, what exactly is required under the heart of the city. 75% of the frontage of the entire project. So the HOA part is not one project, it's part of the entire Westport project. 75% frontage is about the red part. That's split between building 1 and 2, but it's a part of it should be the frontage of the townhomes or row houses, but then they are all now concentrated on the 2 buildings on the right. And since some cannot be, so 100% of building 2 and building 1 are frontage, but that doesn't mean it complies with the code because it's supposed to be 75% of the entire project. As a result, part of the retail was put along Mary, and according to the staff, the total square footage of the red part and the red part and the approved one by moving it to the Mary is compatible to the actual requirement. So the blue one is required to comply with the heart of the city. So the HOA project alone, even though 100% frontage along Stevens Creek is retail, it does not comply with the code because you are not a standalone project. And as a standalone project, you are supposed to include the 15% BMR units, which building 2 does not include, so it does not comply with the code. And so I looked at, okay, the staff report is a little misleading because I looked at the project description in detail that we approved. Nowhere does it mention dining facility. It mentioned restaurant/dining, maybe. But then from the approved plan, you can see very clearly the restaurant, the cafe, the retail are retail for the public. And you can see that the lobby of the senior building is there. And then they're supposed to take the elevator to the 2nd floor, and that's assisted living. There doesn't look like there was any intention at all for the restaurant to be so-called a dining facility. And in the project description, it always mentioned neighborhood retail commercial space. And then it mentioned specifically that the corner of Mary Avenue and Stevens Creek provide this very promising corner of inviting viable retail because people can see from Memorial Park, there is retail that would draw them to the corner and then draw them to the retail on the Stevens Creek. But if you remove the Mary part, that might make the Stevens Creek section of the retail not visible by public. So I'm trying to figure out what solution is there because I really want to have a senior housing project. And I do understand this is something the community really needs. So I looked at the amenity space that's provided. This project has amenity space on the 2nd floor, about 4,600 square feet of space for the memory care unit. They have dining and kitchen and the community. And then this on the 6th floor on the right is a 6th floor amenity space for the HOA building. That's about 12,000 square feet. That's the approved one, sorry. This is the approved one. And on the right is the approved one, on the left is the BMR building. As you can compare, there is a disparity of administrative space available for the BMR and then the HOA building. And so I looked at the approved one. In the approved, this is the modified one.
Okay, Vice Mayor, your comments they're kind of they're pushing 5 minutes at this point. Do you?
Okay, so then I'll talk this and save the rest for the others. I'll end here. So I'm proposing, this is a modified plan. On the 6th floor, they have added actually extra amenity space, but then I see there is a library and 2 lounge area. These 2 area, these 3 area add together would be about 4,000 square feet, I think. So I wonder how come you can, I think the dining facility can be placed on the 6th floor with the rest of the amenities of the building, and that still make this a really top of the line building with theater, spa, fitness, wellness, and a ton of other things. There is really, I don't see a need for taking away 8,000 square feet from the retail to become a dining. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. We have hands raised all across the board right now. They're from Councilmember Way, Councilmember Willie, Greg, Councilmember Moore, and Matt Woody. Let me start with the applicant here, since there seems to be some commentary directed to the plan. Matt, did you want to speak to the Vice Mayor's comments a moment ago?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I would. Well, only to point out that a couple of things. First of all, with all due respect, we are not in a position to have a building that is very complicated to operate be redesigned through Zoom in 5 minutes. And there are very specific practical realities to serving this particular type of resident. One of which is the reason that the restaurant cannot be on the 6th floor, is that the kitchen, which has to serve the restaurants and also has to serve the residents, also has to serve the residents on the 2nd floor in memory care, and also has to be accessible from the ground floor loading. So while it is possible to move pieces around on a plan in Zoom, it's not the way these kinds of buildings get built. And we're not here to debate whether we know what we're doing. If the city does the research, as I'm sure they have done, and council members who we've tried to reach out to and provide as much information as we can, knows that between our company Related and Atria, we build very high quality buildings, and we intend to do the same here, but we are not in a position to redesign the building over Zoom in a public hearing, I'm sorry to say.
Okay, so I have hands raised from, well, let me go to our city staff. Greg, did you want to make a comment at this point?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to respond to a couple points, and I look forward to the further council discussion and direction. First, the link that was sent to the Council and Planning Commission on July 1st was active and operating for the 2 weeks of the appeal period that was open to the Planning Commission and Council. However, the link to the same documents on the project website has remained operating ever since and was re-emailed to the council today. I'm asking staff by this comment to look to keep the appeal notice links active so we don't end up with this misperception again in the future. And second, the comment was raised about the restaurant versus the dining facility, and that gets to the very heart of the issue, why staff was unwilling to approve that change in the use of that space as a minor modification, and why that issue is before the council tonight, because staff was not willing to approve that as a minor mod. And that is the one of the central issues before council tonight. So I don't believe the staff reports were in any way misleading. Thank you.
Okay, I do see a couple of other staff members, or rather our city attorney, as well as an applicant representative. So at this point, let me go back to council. Let's see if we can wrap some comments at this time, and then we'll go back to All right. Well, Chris, first of all, do you have something that you want to point out from a legal perspective?
Yeah, I do just want to clarify, what the decision is before council and what's, not before council. So there is the question of whether a modified heart of the city exception should be approved, because there has been a change to what was formerly configured as a retail space to be a dining area that won't have public access. So that's before council. There is a change to parking. That's before council. The overall affordability level of the project or the density bonus determination are not before council, and I just wanted to make sure that was clear. What the decision is today. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out, Chris. All right. Let me see if the other applicant, Representative Mark Tersini, did you want to say something before we bring it back to council members Willie and Moore?
I do, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate the council's questions thus far this evening. I'd like to address Councilmember Moore's question first, and that had to do with the modification of the parking for the senior affordable senior building. That was a directive by Pacific Community or Pacific companies to do two things. One is to speed the construction timeframe up by not having to build below grade parking. Two, it was to facilitate getting their approval this year from the state with the ability to break ground in January of this coming year. So the project has been fully approved, funded, construction funding in place. We will be donating the land to Pacific companies with Parcel C, with the granting of Parcel C to Pacific companies, and they will be in the position of starting construction. Without having a senior operator, assisted living operator identified and fully funded, we didn't know what time frame, nor did Pacific companies know what time frame building number one would be built. As Matt Whitty has suggested, our two companies were in discussions to work together to build building one. During our discussions, it was brought to my attention that Atria could not have a restaurant that is open to the public. I brought this up in August of 2020 during the hearing for the project approval. A council member at the time raised that question with me. Specifically is the restaurant area, will it be open to the public? And I clearly identified that it will not be open to the public, that I made the wrong assumption with the architect and design team to show it as a restaurant, not knowing that it could not be open to the public. KT Urban has never built an assisted living project in the 33 years that we've been together as KT Urban in Cupertino. So I'll take the responsibility for that. It wasn't to try to show somebody more retail than what we intended to build. It was shown as a restaurant area to be used by the assisted living facility. And it was cleared that evening to me, and I'm unfortunate it wasn't clear to some others on whether or not that discussion was had, but it was had, and we have the actual description of that public hearing transcribed very clearly that was discussed. In this case, Atria and Related will not build the project if required to build a restaurant in that location. It's going to be very disheartening to me, and I think very uncomfortable and disheartening for the community of Cupertino if this project does not go forward due to that change. As is suggested on the parking, a valet operator will be operating the parking garage. My assumption is when the parking of the building number 2 residents there, which will not be into a stacker system, will be able to park their car and simply take an elevator up and walk to their unit. My parents, or not my parents, excuse me, my wife's parents, my in-laws, are 90 years old. They both live in an Atria facility in San Jose, just off Meridian Avenue. The parking that they have provided, which is surface parking, is a much greater distance than what we're showing here on the parking between building number 1 and building number 2. It works for them. They've been in that facility for 2 years. It's a wonderfully run facility, but it's a surface park facility. Building number 2 will be built. And when it is built, it will not have parking underneath it. So if we don't approve building number 1 tonight with Atria and related, KT Urban will have that site and decide what it is it will want to build on a go-forward basis. But it won't include parking under building number 2, because that building will be underway and be completed. My estimate will be completed in 18 months. So that's what I wanted to mention tonight. It isn't a bait and switch. It's a beautifully designed project. It has 3 components, and we're looking forward to the final approval tonight so Atria and related can secure their building permits and get the project underway. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Councilmember Willie.
We approved the project that all 5 of us felt was needed here in Cupertino. Yes, I had concerns about the community's acceptance of 6 stories straight up at the sidewalk. Even on El Camino, we don't see that. But that's okay. The overall package, and I want to say again, we approved it. And I do respect Matt Witt, engineer to engineer. You don't make these massive changes in a Zoom meeting. Why are we here making these massive changes in a Zoom meeting? I feel what should be brought to the city council, I think I am open to changes, but not at the expense to the community. We got to get out of this little box that we're only talking about the residents on this 8 acres. This site has never had housing before. 64,000 residents of Cupertino have utilized the Oaks. I've been to the movie theaters there. I've been to the old bookstore that was there. Those are not existent anymore to our community. The 77,000 square feet of retail down to only. Okay. Now, if the developer, Mark Trissini, says, well, gee whiz, I want to use that 20,000 as restaurants. It's not serving the function that the old one did, but that's okay. But then when we start saying, well, gee whiz, it's not even going to be accessible to the rest, that's fine. Make 20,000 square feet of retail per the heart of the city, retail for the 64,000 residents, and put your dining hall wherever you feel it's going to be best suited for the senior residents of this. Be fair to the community. And we want to be fair to you. So I think tonight that's about the most that we can say. And that's why I want to put a motion for it. Needs to go back, get the true understanding of the community's, what the community gets out of this, and then what the residents of this get out of it. and the profit that the developer will get out of it. And it will be I believe it will be a win-win-win situation. So I really hope to see this back to us in some way, showing the community that you value the community too. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Woolley. Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. So I don't see Chris, but I do disagree with our city attorney that about not revisiting density bonus on this project because the number of units has changed. And so we have a base density, we have the qualified density bonus of 38, a little over 38%. I'm getting 94 density bonus units per our municipal code. We're supposed to have those density bonus units labeled. I also don't understand what the affordability is beyond the very low income units, which they use to qualify for the density bonus units because there's still a handful of affordable units left over. I don't know what affordability those are at. And it's, you know, it's deeply troubling for our community when we have huge RHNA numbers which need to be met. And we have a developer who is using density bonus law to, it was my understanding, to reduce the parking standards for the BMR units, this most recent go around, to 0.5 per unit. That looked like a reduction. It's hard for me to even tell. No offense to staff, but this it was very difficult plan set and group of documents to go through. Now I've gone back to understand how we were supposed to have divined the underground parking changes. And I'm looking at the September 7th, 2021 set of plans, and we approved a vesting tentative map which showed the original dashed line for the parking garage showing under both buildings. That's what we approved. And then there is no underground line shown on the final map, which we approved. So if staff is trying to tell City Council and the Planning Commission that a link in a June email is an approval, and by the way, those director minor modifications show up to us in our Outlook emails, is that we only see the words director's minor modification and a couple of letters of the next item. So there's no actual flagging to us about it. And as the Vice Mayor said, it was for the Westmont project, which I am unfamiliar with. Okay, so I'm just flabbergasted. So we approved a vesting tentative map with the full-size parking garage line shown, and then we've approved a final map. So to me, that's what we thought we were going to get. There's also the issue about dispersal. Apparently, we've only now dispersed BMR parking, but we haven't dispersed the BMR units, and we also haven't dispersed affordable units into the row houses and townhouses. So I don't understand why parking gets dispersed, but the units don't. I'm very confused. And I think it is pretty upsetting to see the disparity between what's being offered for the senior BMR residents versus what's being offered for the market rate residents. And I am of the belief that, and I hope I'm wrong, that central green, for the same reasons that the dining area is no longer open to the public for the protection of the residents, I hope that central green stays open. But I don't want to say bait and switch, but I feel like that could go next and it'll be gone as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. Next, we have Councilmember Way.
Okay, so one clarification I like to make it is when I approved that building two modification, I knew exactly that the underground parking is not there. I saw that language and we asked the questions. I actually asked, why do we need to, get rid of the underground parking? And the answer was they have to, because of financing, they have to break ground. And then if they do the underground parking, they could not break ground. So I don't know why my fellow council members did not know about it, but I did know about it. So I just want to clarify that. And the second is, we're talking about a project that do we want it or not? Because I did, every time if a developer approaches me, they want to explain things. So I would also accept it. I would ask detailed questions. So I did meet with, had a half an hour presentation yesterday morning, I believe. Okay. And I asked a lot of questions. And so that I want to be clear where the changes are. So I am actually really okay with having a more two-bedroom units in the assisted living, and also have have more memory care, because that's a need. And they did talk to residents who are seniors, okay, who really knows what seniors need in our Cupertino area. And I understand the ratio, a compatible ratio has changed because of this, but the 48 units of BMR units have not changed. So I am okay with that. I believe the change is beneficial to Cupertino seniors, and the BMR units has not changed. So I'm okay with that ratio disparity, because unless we wanted to change back, less memory care units to original plan, which is not good for our community. And I do trust Atrians is a very, did some research, very reliable, very good assist living facility, and they will provide first grade facility for our seniors. I am concerned about the retail, the losing of 8,000 square footage of retail, or 7,200, around that range for the restaurant. So I did ask them, how are you going to compensate for that? And I believe what my answer was like they are going to open up the central lawn for outdoor dining facilities. So that would add back some retail, dining retail spaces. I didn't quite get confirmation tonight, but that's when I asked the questions that, we really don't want to lose so much retail on this facility, especially seniors want to, mingle, and then people who live in the condominiums, townhomes might want to mingle, in the great lawn, in a big lawn. And what I asked, they said they're going to add back more retail on the central lawn. So, and they are going to work with the senior centers so that they can have a walkway through the buildings. They're going to make that work, even though they, somehow they're going to make that work. So that, I think that's a part we can kind of say they're trying to accommodate. I do know that we need to trust a company that knows how to do assist living, and we can't be, mandating you do this and that. And I understand how the business, I'm not saying that this is 100% great project. It's a great project. If you look at what they talk to our seniors group, the senior group in our community likes this and knows that it's needed. So I get it. I wasn't on council when this plan was approved. So, but if you look at the overall plan, to me, it is a needed project for our seniors, and we have below market rate. It's approved. It's going to be built. And then this assist living with memory care is really what Cupertino needs. And overall, I believe it's still a pretty good project for our community. It satisfied our needs. Maybe because I wasn't on the original approving council, so I maybe was not that disappointed, because I'm looking at the new project. So that is my take. We have a project in front of us that is a good project, and our seniors have expressed their support for it. And so I do believe maybe it's not 100% that what the original council approved, but it is a very good project for Cupertino.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Wei. I'm going to reiterate the request for a motion at this point. So Vice Mayor Chow, your hand is raised, as is Councilmember Morse, who just lowered her hand. Vice Mayor Chow, will you put forward a motion for us to continue further discussion?
Can the motion request for a modification?
I wouldn't recommend that, no.
No.
Modifications to the project, you're saying?
I cannot accept as it is right now. There are still unresolved issues that I'm concerned with.
Okay, so no motions forthcoming from the Vice Mayor. Councilmember Wade, did you want to set forth a motion?
Yes, for discussion purpose, I will make the motion for approval.
So to be more specific, you're motioning to adopt resolutions 21-117, 118, and 119. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'll second that for discussion purposes.
The Vice Mayor seconds, Councilmember Wade motions. All right, Vice Mayor, your hand is up. Please proceed.
Yeah. First, I did meet with Atria and last Monday and asked for a lot of information. I'd like to thank them for providing me a lot of information. For example, I'd like to know whether there are other facilities also provided a dining facility that large. It's actually true there, San Francisco and San Jose facilities also have dining and even private dining rooms that's comparable to what they are proposing here. Maybe a little smaller, but comparable. And I asked for other information. They were very forthcoming with information. I'd like to thank them for that. I really hope I can approve this project. But then the more I look into it, the more I'm concerned. And I'd like to thank Mark Tassini. I feel that he's pretty straightforward and that he really honestly didn't know. And it's really comforting to know that the BMR building will be built first before the townhouse and the row houses, and he will honor that. That's in the conditions of approval. And that's really comforting to know that. However, I'm struggling with whether this, let me share my screen. So I'm trying to decide what be the price range, because I feel like people propose the project, we approve them, and then they come back, say, oh, we need the bigger units. But bigger units means more expensive units too. And then I'm concerned, would Cupertino residents be able to afford these units? Or are we building units where Menlo Park and Palo Alto people will come here to live, but then Cupertino residents will be priced out? That's my concern. So I try to look what are the typical size of other areas. So we have Chateau Cupertino, which is near City Hall. This is independent living. And we have Sunnyvale, they provide independent assisted and nursing care. And the Atria San Jose, it's assisted Atria. The blue one is the one we approved. Atria San Francisco is assisted also. And the red one at the bottom is the one that's modified in front of us today. I compared the unit size. The one we approved is already bigger than the three on top. And then the one that's in front of us is even bigger than the San Francisco one. And then look at the price. It's just going to be, even the San Jose one, which is smaller than the approved and smaller than the modified, they are starting at 5,000, 8,000, 11,000. And the more bigger the units, the newer it is, it's going to be more expensive. And more amenity space also means the price would go up. And this is not affordable. This is a luxury senior housing. Yes, senior housing is in demand, but people who can afford very luxurious senior living probably can have a lot of options. So then it's mentioned that I propose to move the dining facility to the 6th floor. It said, the memory care unit on 2nd floor also need kitchen, but I'm sorry, this is the modified plan. On the 2nd floor memory care unit, they do have dining and kitchen and the other activity area all for 4,600 square feet, which I mentioned earlier. So they have a kitchen on the 2nd floor. They don't need to share the kitchen on the 6th floor where the amenity is. And also, I wonder what HR's contribution for BMR components. So they are willing to build the ground floor retail. And if they were a standalone project, they are supposed to provide 15% BMR. But the earlier version of the project actually had a few BMR units in the second building in the building one with market rate. But then we are told market rate and BMR cannot mix for a senior. Somehow it doesn't work. So another version, all the BMR is squeezed into building two. So building one has only market rate. Now, then my question is, what's the contribution of the market rate developer to the BMR units? Because if I calculate the number of units, for 15% BMR to be provided, that's about 41% of the entire BMR building. That means Atria should be providing 41% of the funding for the BMR building. Are they providing that? I'm not sure. And so.
Why don't you stop there, Vice Mayor, and give the applicant a chance to address your commentary. And I note that Greg also has his hand raised. So Mark Alexander from the applicant side, did you want to speak to the Vice Mayor's comments there?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Paul. And Vice Mayor Chow spoke to you actually a few days ago. So a couple comments I'll make on some of the information that was just thrown up on the screen relative to just market rates. Our market rates are two things predominantly, not just in the Bay Area, but anywhere we operate, are a function of obviously supply, but also the housing values. And I would just tell you from my experience, having been with the company almost 24 years and literally been in hundreds of communities, of our communities and competitive communities, that Cupertino has, as you all know, I don't have to tell you, but has one of the highest housing values in anywhere in the country, and those rates are a function of housing values. Effectively, that's generally how most people pay for assisted living, is the home equity that they've created over time. On a separate comment on BMR, so I will just draw a quick analogy to a project that we did not very far away in Foster City, with the city of Foster City. Actually, it was the last sort of undeveloped parcel in Foster City. It was a mixed use master plan focused on seniors, and it's turned out extremely well. But one of the things that is very comparable here is the building, that there was a separate senior focused BMR building, which is exactly what this project has. And there was retail, and there is retail in our building, as well as in the BMR building. So it all works together, I think, is my way of sort of responding to the BMR as part of the overall site plan. Mark Tersini can certainly speak to that more specifically. One other comment I just wanted to make on kitchens and dining. The kitchen in memory care is really more of a prep kitchen. The main culinary commercial kitchen is still centralized in the building. And having been in, again, literally hundreds of our communities, and what we have in this development that we're really excited about is a great opportunity to actually be very connected to the community. Even though we're talking about not having our dining room being open to the public because of regulations, we feel like this site in this particular location is exceptionally good for seniors, being across the street from the senior center, being programming with De Anza,
the fact that we can actually create such a good connection with the city, it's just an ideal spot. And I think just because there is not a retail component on that specific square footage, to me, I understand that's a very important to the city commissioners, but our residents, dining is a hugely important part of their of what they're paying for. Besides, nice apartments and lots of activities and housekeeping and other services, it's a different model of service than affordable or just BMR housing, which is truly just room and board. So in having that dining room on the main level, I think it's extremely important for just the quality of life for the people that would live in the building. By putting it anywhere else, which by the way, we don't think we can do, because just literally it's a lot of square footage and it would reduce the density of the building. It would honestly, I think it would be a very big detriment to our residents. And having had my own experience with my mother living in assisted living for over 10 years, having a dining room up in higher in a community, it segregates the residents from really day-to-day life, and that's the opposite of what we want to do. So I feel strongly that it's a better location, and obviously you all know what we've already said about the DSS regulations, which is the governing body for assisted living. Just the requirements that part of what we have to do is provide dining for everyone, and we want to have lots of visitors and guests for our residents. We are very committed to the communities that we operate in. Look forward to programming and partnering with the Senior Center and De Anza and other organizations. I think what we're asking for actually is, that it's a function of what the market is looking for. There's only 27 2-bedrooms in Cupertino. We're adding a few more 2-bedrooms, and the memory care we've already all talked about, the undersupply in the market. So what we're trying to do is just balance in what Mark Tersini said, and what the reality is we came into this late. Certainly it's unfortunate that happened, that there was a difference of this dining facility being open to the public, but there certainly is not a bait and switch. And I want to, for council member Moore, we are committed to, that Central Green would be absolutely open, and we look to be very excited to program to it and work with the city to make that happen.
Greg, you had a comment before we move on to Councilmember Moore.
Yes, thank you. And I think it unexpectedly follows perfectly on Mr. Alexander's comment. I came to this city with about a third of my career in land use development and environmental protection and preservation, a third of my career directly in politics working for elected officials, and a third of my career in city management. And I see that we're devolving away from a policy discussion into facts and details and designing from the dais, or staff bashing or applicant bashing and the like. And I think we're missing the real policy issues that are before the council. One option is to rely on the expertise of the applicant, their operator, the staff, and to approve the project and go forward. The other extreme is to say, this is too different than what we saw before for whatever series of reasons, and we want to go back to the drawing board, potentially with a different applicant and a different operator, because who knows if, they've already said they're not willing to tweak from the dais, and who knows what will come back when for this project. And I really wonder if there's a path in the middle there, given what I've heard from the council, that it seems that the core policy issue that's before the council is the public assets and the loss of the 8,000 square feet. So riffing off what the operator just said, does the council want to explore with the applicant, conditions that make the public green public space, that guarantees that the retail along Stevens Creek Boulevard can use that space in the back for seating and tables to make it energizable space that meets the public need? Are there opportunities? And is that really the core public issue that the council should be exploring now, rather than attacking the applicant, attacking bait and switch, attacking whether it said Westport in the subject line or in the body of the memo. Those are secondary issues that are irrelevant to the policy issues before the council. Do you want the project to go forward? Do you want the project to go back to the drawing board? Or is there some place in the middle that you can meet your policy need of ensuring the public access you want for this project? That seems to me to be the core question, and only you can answer it. I'll be quiet.
Okay, I'm going to go on to Councilmember Moore.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Mayor Paul, for bringing it back to council for discussion. And I'm wondering how open the remainder of this discussion is. I actually think this should probably have gone to planning, and I would actually prefer that it goes back to planning and have them make comments about it before it returns to us. I'm getting, you know, I get the requests from the press, from the Mercury News, wanting to talk about how we're anti-housing for this project. They could have 337 units on it with the amount of affordable BMR that they have. Instead, the last time we had 267 units, now we're down to 259 units. Personally, I'd like to see that parking garage returned underneath the BMR building. If the developer could go 2 floors down previously, I'm really not sure that the argument to not provide the senior BMR parking under their own building is warranted. I'm concerned about that. Also, with regards to second floor dining, I think several of us went to the 30-year celebration, I believe it was, at the Forum, and their dining facility is on the second floor. And that's a very large facility up there. So I'm not sure that I'm in agreement with the argument to not have that on the second floor. And it's always troubled me that so few of the density bonus units were utilized in this project, and so much height was requested, and that so much height, because I didn't approve this project. It came to the previous city council. So what I approved was a tentative map, which had a parking layout that I'm the one that I prefer. So I didn't approve that previous project. I felt that more height was being requested and stacked against Mary. And I've always questioned if that was really a legitimate use of the height waiver, because you had the low townhouses to the west. And it has also always troubled me that we didn't get dispersal into the townhouses. So I've always wanted to see one of those townhouses be for BMR, because that seemed to be fair with regards to our dispersal requirements. And so I question what we're doing to the 48 senior units without the parking in the basement, underground parking like the market rate units have. And I'm not a fan of the stacker units as well. But if we're being questioned about if we're anti-housing, it seems as though we're allowing the developer on this particular project to use density bonus law and not take the density bonus units. So I would definitely prefer to see the maximum allowable density on this site. We need to have projects doing that. We need more housing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Moore. And let's go to Councilmember Willie.
Yeah, you know, I do respect, you know, our city manager, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. But I disagree with the narrative. Us on this city council, we've had our 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. an attorney, a PhD, a licensed engineer, another licensed civil engineer. We're bringing the true essence of why the residents put us on this city council. To make sure that we're listening to the community. The community has a general plan and the community has a heart of the city. And a project came to us that didn't adhere to those, and we still really stretched and approved it. And I think we're open to even more changes. Engineering, it constantly evolves, but it needs to evolve in a fair way. And so I would hope that when changes come back, it truly does look like a fair exchange. We have 64,000 residents in Cupertino, and they deserve to be a part of these discussions. They don't have the blue light cinema anymore. They don't have all the retail anymore. What they're going to get is 20,000 square feet with a large part of it just restaurants. Well, no, wait a minute, let's take another 8,000 away. Well, what here, we went and visited Santa Clara Square, and we talked to the developer there, and he had out of the box thinking where he said that for Saratoga Square, Santa Clara Square, they didn't want the BMR units to be in that high-tech environment there. So they bought another piece of land and then had that developed as their below market rate units by a different developer. There are ways to accommodate these things. If supplying, some of those row houses on a different site or something, and fulfilling to the best that you can the Bible of the city that the residents expect us to try to adhere to as best as we can. So I really do think we want to work with the developer. Sometimes it doesn't seem like it's a two-way street. So I'll leave it at that. If I have any time left, I'm happy to cede it to any of the other councilmen.
Vice Mayor?
I think I asked Councilmember Moore, were asking for things that I asked earlier. Where are the density units marked, which the municipal code requires? I asked repeatedly. They never had that. And then the height was almost doubled. So how come the number of units wasn't doubled? Well, we were struggling with whether to grant a project that was almost double the heights, initially with like 5 extra units out of, but eventually we really want to approve the project. So we made a lot of concessions. These are a list of concessions we made. 45 feet high, we allowed it to almost double to almost 80 feet for both buildings. Yeah, it's along Mary. I wish the higher building could be in the back, but developer preferred it that way. And then the slope setback, we allowed that to be almost double also. And the BMR menu especially require that to be inclusionary so that the BMR residents don't feel they are living in a poor community. So, but then because they want to only produce senior BMR, they have to be separate. And therefore we couldn't get 15% BMR units in townhome and row houses. We should have that. We didn't get 15 BMR units in front building and the Atria building. We should have that. And now all the senior BMR is concentrated in building 2. And then we find out they don't even get their underground parking. So to summarize, what this kind, we approved the project with all good intention. We with a lot of we gave a lot of room so that we can approve it. And now we got a lot more push to, and everything that they request will make their project more profitable, but they are also taking away things from Cupertino residents. Yeah, it will improve the quality of life of the residents in Atria building, but then it's taking away quality of life of the residents in that area and all of Cupertino residents. 8,000 square feet of restaurant is turned into private dining. That means more higher monthly fee for a for-profit senior housing project and less restaurant space for us. And plus ceiling height for the ground floor retail, it will be reduced from 20 feet to 16 feet. But then ceiling height for some 3 different floors will be increased. And the unit size will be increased. That again would make the housing more expensive and less affordable for Cupertino residents. And they are reducing the number of units that actually count for RENA and underground parking, of course. That maybe that's requested by BMR unit developer, but still that's very inconvenient. Imagine that they need to walk from initially they just need to ride the elevator to their floor. Now they need to go up of elevator, walk across the street that has no traffic light in the wind, in the winter, in the rain to a different building, and then ride the elevator for seniors. That's a big concern. And then we don't have a 15% inclusionary BMR that we should have, and minor reduction of open space. So you're asking everything that, but you're not giving the city residents anything. There has to be a balance. There is no balance with this request. And like you said, this location is ideal for senior residents. Senior center is right next. You will have the Anza College, a really big park, Memorial Park next to it, and the sports center. I suppose many people will want to propose a project for this site. And the Cupertino location will be very desirable. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. We did have a hand raised from Councilmember Moore a moment ago. At this point, we don't have further council comments. Oh, Councilmember Moore, you've raised your hand again. Did you want to wrap? Oh, and Councilmember Way, you did have your hand raised previously, and it's up again. So let's go to Councilmember Way because just in terms of the, and then we'll go to Councilmember Moore.
Okay, so my comment is because I think Councilmember Moore and I weren't in the original approval process. I'm looking at this as a new project, okay? And if we say we listen to the residents, our residents have spoken. Our senior residents have spoken. They think this is a great project. It's what our community needs, and what the 15% that Vice Mayor Chow wanted Atrium to provide, I believe this is a whole Westport project that's approved, and the low-income housing project is concentrated on the 48 units, and the concession, if I understood it when the original council approved it, those concessions were by law that the developer has a right to ask for concessions waivers for density bonus. Correct me if I'm not wrong, if that's correct. So I don't think Atrium needs to provide that 15% low-income housing because it's the whole project is considered as Westport. So that's my understanding of. I'm looking at this as a brand new project, okay? And it is a really good project for our seniors have spoken. They like to have it. And you know, our arena, we might have lost 8 units, but the memory care units, it says it's needed. I guess the applicant can go back to the original and say, well, you know, we don't provide the extra 2 bedrooms, we don't provide the extra 2 memory cares. But if you ask our senior community, they think that's what we need, okay, as in Cupertino. So I'm looking at this as a brand new project. And if we really like to have more retail, we lost what, according to the previous project, I mean, we have lost 8,000. So let's look at the central loan. How, if we open that, the dining area, how much retail we get back from that. So to me, it's a brand new project. And if we're concerned about more retails, like interim city manager Greg said, we can say, hey, you got to guarantee that the central loan areas, restaurants, how many area spaces open up for retail. Okay, so we can put condition to it. If we're concerned about parking, maybe we could say, put back how many parking spaces. As for the stack parking, I do believe Atron is very experienced. For seniors and their visitors to just park the car in the front and go visit their, go inside so that they have valet service, I believe that's probably a good service for assisted living. So I'm not concerned about that because Atron knows how to manage this. So to me, it is a good project, but if you want to tweak it and say, we want to request this, make sure that retail is there at open loan and how many square footage of it is included, or we can say, hey, put back some of the parkings, get it more parking. I don't think we could go back to have underground parking on building 2. I think we already, it's according to Mark, it's already ready to go. That financing is approved, that building 2 is ready to be built. Correct me if that's not correct. Okay, so I'm looking at it as a brand new project. And I do believe if we like to get a couple requestments in there so that it's satisfied, some residents or our councils, previous council who approve it, I would love to, we can able to get a compromise and then put a couple more items in there, but approve this project because our seniors have spoken. They believe this is a good project and they are our residents.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Wei. Councilmember Moore.
Okay, so what were the original number of parking spaces provided for the below market rate units?
John Martier. I would say it's I have a sudden amnesia. I apologize. It's been a long night. That hasn't been changed at all in terms of the amount of parking that's provided to them.
So that's 48 then.
Yes, 48 units, correct. And I believe it's 41 spaces.
Can you show me where they are, please?
Sure.
And it's in the staff report. They have a table there.
Visually.
40 spaces, correct.
Right. If we could see them visually where they're located. There's 26, but 2 of them are EV spaces, which would have a limitation on how long you would leave your vehicle there, I would assume. But there are 2 in the parking garage for a total of 26 in the parking garage in the next door building. And so I'm also wondering where the remainder are. Yeah, so there's 26 there.
I'm sorry, I shared the wrong screen. I apologize.
And also there's 1 unit I wanted to mention next to the elevator shaft. And this is not, when you look at the elevator shaft, you're on the right page. When you look at the elevator shaft, gosh, it would be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, the 12th space from the west side on the bottom part. You'll see the ADA stall is up against the elevator shaft, and I am concerned that that parking will be very difficult for someone to assist someone out of the passenger seat in the front of their vehicle. And also I have been concerned, just looking at the number of ADA spaces on this project, that there are perhaps not enough given the senior population and disability. So with that, having the seniors in particular with the BMR units needing to be fit to make all this motion to the other building. I know we've had some of the developers saying how their family members are older and they're all fit, but you know, some of us have family that are wheelchair bound or are handicapped and disabled, and they would have a problem with this. I brought it up to a member of my family. I said, you know, how would it be for you to need to park in the underground garage next door with your groceries, bring them over to an elevator, go up the elevator, go across the street, get to your next building, opening the doors, get up the elevator there and get to your unit. How would you like that? And I can't repeat what he said, but he didn't like it. So to me, this is a real sticking point. You know, I appreciate the developer wanting to save money on this, but I've got a real problem, and it's not going away. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay, so we've had a number of rounds of discussion here. I think that we probably should wrap this. We're nearing the midnight hour, and it doesn't look like we're going to be able to get to our final substantive item before then. And Mr. City Attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, we can still consider item 31 on December 21st, correct?
Yes.
That's not going to delay. Well, okay, great.
Yes. It will leave us without any wiggle room, you know, because I don't think we'll have a meeting after the 21st. But we could definitely consider it on the 21st.
Right. Okay. Great. So you know, at this point, I think, you know, with leaving my counsel, I do see a couple of representatives from the applicant would like to speak. You know, I'll just take a poll of council because I know we're in discussion, and I'll see if we close this out to try to take a vote. Let's start with Vice Mayor Chow. Are you okay with Mark Tersini and Matt Woody giving us some follow-on comments at this point?
Yeah. Can I first thank the staff first? I keep forgetting that. And I mean, the Westport webpage is the most comprehensive of all our projects. And really, staff has done a great job of trying to put everything there, even though the minor modification might have been missed, but then they did try to put a lot of information out in the tables and everything. Thanks a lot. And I did not actually notice it's Westmont until I put it on the screen. I was not really trying to to point that out until I read it there. But then I was, because the staff mentioned the email to the council, I was trying to point out the description is not, concrete is not for us to understand. That's my yeah. And I think staff does already tried a lot. And then the staff report is very comprehensive with tables of parking spaces, tables of the different unit size. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. And Councilmember Willie, are you okay with the applicants.
Yeah. Mhm.
Vice Mayor, you've already said yes.
Yeah, most definitely. And, you know,
Okay, okay.
yeah, I'll leave it at that. Yeah, most definitely.
All right, Councilmember Moore. Yeah, you're nodding. Okay, I'm gonna take that as a yes. Councilmember Way.
Yes.
I'm fine with it as well. So, Mark, Matt, please feel free to give us some, final thoughts and comments.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I do appreciate the opportunity here. I wanted to address Councilmember Moore's question again with respect to the parking. The parking was a directive to KT Urban from Pacific companies. It wasn't our idea, it was Pacific companies saying, we need this modification in order to expedite our project, in order to meet the tight timeframes that we have. And we work with them to do that with your staff, and appreciative of your director taking the initiative to provide that approval timely, so that Pacific companies could obtain their state financing. And as I state, they have now obtained their construction financing. That project is going to go forward. There is parking, surface parking, in front of building number 2. And that is an area that would be simply able to pull in front of the building, park if one wanted to drop some groceries off, and go to the garage if they have more than groceries that they can handle. But Pacific Companies manages over 200 facilities. And with their expertise, I'm sure they're going to be very sensitive to their residents as far as their residents' needs. So perhaps they may want to look at some valet operation themselves as far as their own parking. That could be a solution if there's a concern from residents that it's a long walk for them to be able to get to their unit. I can't speak for them. I don't have them on the phone tonight or at this hearing. Matt Whitty has suggested that his company is prepared and will have professional valet service for their residents. So I think it would be very simple for Pacific companies to tap into that valet service and assist the residents in building number 2. So I wanted to make that very clear. I also want to answer Councilmember Chow's question, and I sent a letter to the council members earlier today describing the work and the relationship between KT Urban and Pacific companies and what the cost is associated to the entire project. It's the dedication of the land for $1 to Pacific companies. Our firm paid for all of the civil engineering for the entire project. Our firm paid for the architectural fees associated with the structure itself. When Pacific took over the project, they're doing the interior improvements and the building permit phase of the project. But the actual structure phase, KT Urban covered that. KT Urban paid for the legal expense for the reciprocal easement agreement, the BMR agreement, and all of the effort for the CC&Rs, et cetera, all under our ownership and our cost. Then each member of the team building the project out, related will be responsible for their construction. Pacific companies will be responsible for theirs, and the townhomes will be responsible for their portion of the construction. So I just want to make that very clear. That's how this is working out. So,
Mark, let's provide some time here.
Sure.
We're nearing.
Not ready to take over. I just want to say, I've been very fortunate. We've been, as KT Urban, to be able to attract a company like Atria and related to this project in Cupertino. If they decide they don't want to go forward, which is my understanding, it's going to be a long time in coming before that corner gets developed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Our wrap up, Matt Woody.
Yes, I'll be brief. Thank you, Mayor Paul. Let me just say, we are involved, if any of you know our company, we are involved with a lot of very large, complicated mixed-use projects. This is not a very large one, but it is definitely a complicated one. And I really want to say how much I appreciate each of the council members raising what are issues important to them. As you've all heard, they're different. Some overlap, but some quite different. And let me just say, lastly, that we've come to you with a plan that we think will be absolutely the finest assisted living project in the Bay Area, if not in California. Whether it could be done less expensively, as Councilwoman Chow has suggested, I don't know. What I can tell you is we're not interested in doing it less nicely. And what we have proposed to you is something that we've spent the better part of more than a year now, since it was approved in August of 2020, studying ways to try to accomplish what all of you are suggesting, which is essentially to produce what was approved. And for us, that's not possible. Whether you accept why it's not possible or not, that's certainly your prerogative. But we are not in a position to do some of the things that some of you have suggested we ought to go back to the drawing boards and do. I'm not saying somebody else wouldn't do it. And we hesitate to be in a position where we have to say to an elected group of officials, very well thought officials as yourselves, that we can't make changes. So I'm not saying that. But where we're at is at a point where if there are very specific conditions, as I think perhaps one or more of you mentioned, that you wanted to approve this subject to, we would certainly be amenable to that. But we are not in a position to redesign this building from scratch. And if that's what the council deems is the most beneficial for the city, then I suspect that's what you'll do, and we'll have to move on to something else. But we certainly hope that we can find a way to deliver this facility for the benefit of the people that you heard from tonight. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thanks very much. I'm a bit heartened by one of the comments made by Mark in this last go around with regard to the valet parking. That's something that we haven't heard in terms of the Atria facility possibly being extended to the residents of the BMR units. And with regard to the parking, that it is certainly less convenient to have your parking not underground within the same building. So I would be interested in hearing some kind of commitment there. Where I'm really stuck here is the 8,000 square feet. And, I take at face value the assertion that this was unintentional. It wasn't some kind of plan to, divest the community of, this many square feet of retail amenity. But I'm also hearing the underlying message from some of my fellow council members with regard to something being taken away from the city at large and not necessarily being returned in kind. Now, I get the fact that this is a project that has a lot of moving parts. It puts in housing, but I'm just kind of focused on this particular aspect of it because I'm just wondering what the community can be receiving in exchange. And that's where I get stuck mentally. I mean, I don't know precisely what we can be asking for. Something like access to the greens, I take also at face value that green space is going to be available to the retail and to the public. I would take great exception, and I think the rest of the community would as well if that wasn't made. And so if you have retail directly adjoining that space, I mean, I don't really see it as much of a concession or a net benefit for the public to get an assertion of something that seems like a logical cohesion of space and adjoining usage of that space with respect to retail. So, I just wonder what we can be doing to be made whole. And, I happen upon a monetary, fix. And I know that it's not something that we end up being able to quantify, that readily. But it does seem like the Vice Mayor has some really good points with regard to a lot of these changes being made to, and I think we're all in agreement to make this more economically viable. It is a fact that this market is very high with regard to housing costs. And, but at the same time, anything that makes it more attractive and marketable is going to end up generating more revenue. Which of course, you're in a for-profit business. We understand that, but of course there's that BMR component of it. So there's that, pushback from there. But what can we be doing to help alleviate some of the loss of the retail here? I don't know what our tools are with regard to being able to ask for perhaps a percentage of, added revenues as a result of this. What goes in my mind is, we have recently, created a, Cupertino available transit program, essentially by outsourcing to a third party to via shuttle, perhaps a percentage of, revenues brought in could be allocated towards that. I don't even want to name a number, but if you made me, I would say something like, $500,000 a year ongoing would be, pretty attractive to our community. If it was subsidizing an internal transit solution that we're not really readily serviced by otherwise. But that's a thought that I have. But listening to my colleagues on council, it seems pretty clear that there is a bit of I think an understandable loss of appetite with regard to the idea that there are significant features of the original plan. And understanding legalities and requirements are there. But at the same time, this wasn't what we bargained for in the first place in terms of having 8,000 less square feet of retail in a plan that, is originally in its entirety retail throughout the 7 acres. So, those are my thoughts. I mean, I'm still inclined towards the project. I think it's an important project. I hear what you're saying when studios are converted to bedrooms, but at the same time, if it makes it more likely that people aging in place will then go ahead and, sell off their, pretty high value residential, home and make way for, perhaps younger families to, have a more suitable usage of that existing space, like single family units, then, I think it actually cuts for that. And I get the economics of it. It is very expensive, which is why we look at the BMR units. It is progress that we have BMR units on site that are being developed and delivered by, I guess the same development suite, if you will, if not necessarily the exact same developer. It would have been nice to have Pacific here, frankly, today, because that is a priority. I know that's a stated priority of our council to make sure that we're truly dealing with the more intractable parts of the housing crisis and not using it, as an opportunity to, try to ultimately derive some measure of self-gain. I really do stand behind the sincerity of our council and community in trying to, truly alleviate some of the pressures and tensions here. And the BMR units, they really do represent, our ability to do that. These are not interspersed like they require in our BMR manual, but at the same time, it's not something where we're being handed a bucket of money and being asked to go find, a separate entity to help develop it, as well as putting it aside in a pot of money with an indefinite horizon with regard to delivery of the space. So, all in all, I still think that the project is a good one. I hear the concerns with regard to what's been happening, and I wonder what we can be possibly doing. I am hearing time, though. Time seems to be a factor on both ends, but I think it would benefit the project as it exists to, be a bit more vetted and thinking through what some of the trade-offs could potentially be in benefit of the public. So that's where I'm looking at it at this point. I mean, I hear what everyone's saying about, kind of going a little bit in excess within the purview of the stated scope of the discussion, but I think these are all important points. But at the same time, when we're talking about things that were concessions in terms of invocation of a density bonus law, for instance, I'm not saying we should necessarily set those aside. Those are definitely, important factors to be aware of. But in consideration of what's happening right here, I think we're looking at the 8,000 squares. I think we're looking at what's happening with parking and trying to figure out, what can we be doing in order to be making the community a large whole for what's being asked here. So those are my ideas of what we could be potentially thinking about. But I think, some benefit of time. I'm kind of leaning towards the idea of, we do have the Planning Commission, but we would potentially have an option. We sit at December 7th, we have another council meeting on December 21st. What could potentially, staff and the applicant come back at us with? There's obviously not enough time to bring this to the Planning Commission next week and then bring it back to us the following week. Staff can correct me if I'm not correct about that. I know we have a scheduled Planning Commission meeting on Tuesday. But that's kind of where I'm, thinking on this project. I do see two hands raised from Vice Mayor Chow and Councilmember Moore. I'm in earnest about our midnight cutoffs at this point. We're 4 minutes to. And so, Vice Mayor Chow and Councilmember Moore, I think kind of expounding as to, comments and points. At this point, let's not do that. Let's try to figure out procedurally where we stand and how we should, move forth with this item. So, Vice Mayor Chow, you look like you're thinking, so I'll go to Councilmember Moore. Did you have
Are you looking for a motion to continue the item to 21st or direction for modification to come back?
Well, I think that there is a set of concerns and comments that have been raised from council. I would like to provide an opportunity for a couple of weeks to try to address some of those points as we've provided in our comments. If we can come back in a couple of weeks, I would be happy to table the motion that we currently have and consider it again on December 21st. That is something that I'd be happy to entertain with a question as to what else could potentially be done. Like I said, I don't think that there's enough time to stop by Planning Commission on the way to the 21st back to council. And I didn't hear staff or interjecting or raising their hand
That's correct, Mayor. Yes, the next Planning Commission that could be noticed for is not until January.
Okay.
Yeah, so, we would basically, before the end of the year, be looking at coming back to council in a couple of weeks.
Should I talk about what I think will be a deal killer? I think that I didn't raise the concern about parking because since if the BMR developer Pacifica requested it, I trust that they probably don't want to reduce the cost of their project so that they don't have to do the excavation. And I don't think the valet parking might not work because the drop-off for valet will be at the entrance, which will be along Mary. And then even if they will have to walk all the way from Mary to Building 2. That's a very long walk too. It could be an option, but it's not a very good option. And also, to me, that the removal of the 8,000 square feet of retail is a deal killer for the project. The reason is retail, if you look at the parking, all of the parking are along, for retail is along Mary. And then if the retail is only on Stevens Creek, that retail is not going to get business because there are no parking around it. And the way a retail shopping mall works is when there is a flow of retail that you connect from the parking to the other retail, then you can attract people to walk from one tail to one to the next. But then if you in the middle, it's a private facility, no one can access. that's still going to kill the retail for the entire project, both in building 1 and building 2.
Okay, Vice Mayor, we're doing precisely what I asked that we not do.
Okay,
We don't
so-
have time to expound for, comments, discussion here. I mean, I can entertain
So,
a
I mean,
on the table.
when they come back, I'd like to see a way to make the project work and still have the 8,000 square feet for retail at the ground floor. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not hearing possibility for that happening. Let me go to Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Moore, do you have thoughts on this in terms of bringing it back in a couple of weeks or taking a vote on it this evening?
My preference is that it were to come back. I would like to see if one of the row houses can be for rent, for sale. I'm not convinced that the restaurant cannot be, the dining area can't be moved to the second floor. And I am still unconvinced that the developer is unable to find a way to pay for the subterranean parking under the BMR building. Also, with regards to the entire project and the we don't know how to build this type of thing. We haven't done it before. I do find that a little bit disconcerting, given that, related California, we're looking at a $7 billion asset company, and Tersini, and very, very well-known, done a lot of buildings, able to hire consultants. So I'm a little bit surprised at their stage in the game that they had trouble pulling this off. So I have a little disbelief in it. So those are my offerings. I'd like to see it come back, and I think that more can be offered to make this work for the community.
Councilmember Way.
Just real quickly, just one comment. The veranda cost us, I don't know, 4 or 5 years to build, and $800,000 per unit, and that's 18 units. We're getting 48 units of low-income housing and senior housing. I think it's much needed. And I don't know if Atria's timeline can wait for us to decide. So I guess we should ask the Atria whether they could come back. And I don't think we are in the position of tell them where to put a restaurant, because this is their business. So either we take the whole package, or we work on maybe adding more retail somewhere on the property to satisfy the original comment. And so I look at this as a new project, and I look at it as we get 48 units of BMR and a good senior assisted living with memory care and ADA row homes, which is much needed for our community. I see it as a pretty good project, because I wasn't on the original approval, so I guess wasn't as disappointed as what's being offered. That's just my comment.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Way. Mr. City Attorney Jensen, did you have a comment that you wanted to make before we proceed?
Yeah, it is as to how to proceed. I believe there is a motion on the table that has been seconded. So I think the option is to vote on that motion, or to make a substitute motion. And I don't know whether the intent was to make a substitute motion to continue the hearing till the 21st. But I think procedurally, those are the options to proceed.
You see that as a legitimate substitute motion to make at this point. Is that correct, Chris, that we would continue the hearing until December 21st?
So procedurally, I don't think there are any problems with noticing. I don't want to speculate as to how, how much progress we could make with the applicant between now and December 21st.
Okay. Well, I think that this would probably be a better option in terms of keeping some potential options open than taking a vote on the motion on the table at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and invite that substitute motion from anybody that would care to make it, that the motion be that this item be continued until December 21st at a regular council meeting. Vice Mayor Chow, would you like to make that motion?
I'd like to make a substitute motion that the developer take a look at the option of putting the dining facility on the 6th floor, being related and Atria so experienced in developing so many projects, and then their inability to consider this kind of change is, I don't understand that. Why, I mean, there must be a way to move the dining facility to the 6th floor of the building where there is space to accommodate them.
Okay, let me stop you there, Vice
So
Mayor.
if I'd like to move that they consider this option and bring back for us to consider on the 21st. And if that's, maybe it's a preliminary answer on whether that's feasible for them or not, then I'm willing to consider. I really want this project to work, but the ground floor retail is essential for this site since we already lost an entire site of shopping mall. 20,000 square feet is already a big reduction, and let's make it work.
Okay, Vice Mayor,
That's my motion.
You need to encapsulate your motions more concisely.
Okay.
Because all those words cannot possibly be your motion.
Okay, sorry. So I move that to give direction for the applicant to come back with modified proposal to place the dining facility at a different location in the building so that the ground floor retail portion is not modified from the approved project.
Okay, is there a second for Vice Mayor Chow's motion? Councilmember Moore, you have your hand raised.
I would like to add a friendly amendment to it. Do I have to second and then make my friendly amendment, or may I just string it all together?
No, go ahead and ask for your friendly amendment to the.
Okay, that the potential for one of the row houses or townhouses be affordable as a BMR unit for sale, for rent, to be explored, and the extension of the subterranean garage be explored and come back with that item on the 21st.
I accept.
Okay, so Vice Mayor, you've accepted Councilmember Moore's friendly amendment, and Councilmember Moore, you're going to go ahead and second that motion now?
I second it.
Okay, so that's the substitute motion. And so I don't see any further hands raised. In any event, Councilmember Wade, you do have your hand raised, so I'll call on you after I make my brief comment here.
Yes.
Hold on, let me make my comment. The upshot of this is a continuation to December 21st, and I would expect that, given the benefit of a couple of weeks, there could be the ability to speak to other comments that were made. But those are specific items that were captured in the motion, I understand. But from the way I see it, we would be continuing this item until December 21st, and that would be the key component of this. And that's why I would be voting for this. Councilmember Way?
Yes, I just have a question on the motion. These questions are really specific, like put the restaurant in the 6th floor and things like that. Are we open to them coming back with other suggestions that could be accepted, or we have to put it on the 6th floor on the restaurant? That's my question.
The motion didn't specify where. My motion just says elsewhere.
Oh, okay, sorry, because I thought it was the 6th floor.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
the first kind of, much more expounded version of it.
So can we hear the complete motion? I'm a little confused.
I would ask that the city clerk read back what she has, but if not, then we should go to the tape because that's not something that I think is replicable necessarily.
I have.
Okay, go ahead.
I have Substitute motion to provide direction for the applicant to come back with the modified proposal to place the dining facility at a different location so that the ground retail is not modified for the project. And Moore added a friendly amendment to explore potential for one of the row or townhouses to be affordable as BMR for sale or for rent. And that the subterranean garage option be, I may have missed this part, be explored and come back for council consideration on December 21st.
Okay, thank you, Kirsten. Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Okay, so that's your motion on the table. It has a second. And Chris, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I think just staff needs clarification. If the applicant is not willing to agree to one or more of those changes, what is council's direction to staff to bring back on December 21st?
Well, my understanding from the original motion, from the original language surrounding the motion that Vice Mayor Chow made, was that she would appreciate an answer one way or the other. So a no would also be an answer of those.
It's not and for all. It's A or B or C. Ideally all, but they don't have to do all. But we would like them to seriously consider these alternatives. Right.
Okay. Right, motion on the table. There's a second. I don't see further hands raised. This would be to effectuate that action that would have us revisit this item on December 21st. So, Madam City Clerk, would you please take a roll call vote?
Councilmember Moore.
Sorry.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Councilmember Way.
No.
Councilmember Willie.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow.
Aye.
Mayor Paul.
Yes.
Motion carries with Way voting no.
Okay, and so for the remainder of our agenda, I'm going to go ahead and table item 31 until December 21st. We're past our midnight cutoff, and with regard to the follow-ons here, let's just go ahead with there are no more oral communications. The council and staff comments and future agenda items. I would just ask that we have plenty to consider before the end of the calendar year. We have a new city manager coming in, and so I would ask that we forego those right now, unless there are very brief comments that are not future agenda item related at this time. Do we have any from either council members or staff? I see both Greg and Councilmember Moore have their hands up. So let's start with our interim city manager, who is in his last day with us, I guess, because this is technically December 8th. Greg.
Literally into my last day. I just want to say thank you to the mayor and council for this great opportunity to serve the city of Cupertino and to work with what is an incredible staff. Your staff is dedicated to serving you. They want to be part of the council team. And I just encourage you to look for opportunities to provide the guidance and questions that let them assist you as you do your important policy work for the residents of Cupertino. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And I assure you, you and the rest of staff absolutely are part of the same team. And I know that every one of our council members feels the same way. Perhaps it's not evinced in a way that's universally communicated, but I know that we're all working together. You look at the bird safe dark skies ordinance, that's just one example of something that can come back multiple times and basically be a real trendsetter. So, I stand behind our work and the quality that we put into it. Councilmember Moore, you had your hand raised. Did you have anything to say? You're shaking your head now. Thank you for pointing at your wrist in indication of the time. And so with respect to the rest of it, thank you very much. I apologize to everyone. I had committed to 12 midnight to conclude. It's just shy of 12:15 right now. And so I'll go ahead and in my first first meeting of this term, adjourn our meeting on December 8th, very early in the morning, 2021.
Mayor Paul,
Yes.
I apologize for the interruption. Were you going to adjourn make a specific adjournment for in memory
Absolutely,
of?
absolutely. Thank you. So I wanted to, with thanks to the city clerk for pointing this out, we had a very, very sad event occur recently from a member of our family, from a member of our staff family. It was the passing of Edwin Gutierrez. Mr. Edwin Gutierrez was a maintenance worker in our public works department, and he passed away unexpectedly on November 7th of this year. Mr. Gutierrez was 26 years old and was married this past August. He started his employment with the city in October of 2018 and was assigned to the tree and right-of-way division. Edwin primarily trimmed city street trees, did planting, and operated the aerial bucket. Recently, Mr. Gutierrez transferred to the streets division. He was well respected and always willing to assist others. He will be missed by all. And we express our deepest condolences to the family and friends of Mr. Edwin Gutierrez from the city of Cupertino. He provided the Cupertino community with outstanding service. And so after a moment of silence, I would like to have us adjourn this meeting in memory of Edwin Gutierrez. Thank you very much, everyone, this evening. And the meeting is adjourned. We'll see you on December 21st, 2021 for our next regularly scheduled meeting. Thank you very much.